All right, my delightful delinquents. Good to see everybody. Welcome to a special edition of the show. I want to do a little volume check with you guys. We got some wonderful guests on today as we dive into Silent Hill 2 Remake, which I hope you have played. If you have not and you have a problem with spoilers, this is probably not going to be the show for you because I'm not worried about spoiling it for anyone. But first, let me introduce our esteemed horror steeped. I'm fucking with you guys. Steeped in horror. You guys know him. You guys love him. If you love the horror like I do, Big Bad Cody Leach and Rudy, but he's known better as Gen X Reviews on the YouTube. So, Cody, how you doing?
I am doing fantastic, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, Rudy, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Excited to be here.
Good. Glad to have you guys. Let me know, you guys watching the show, if it turns out the audio is a little fucked up, can't hear us, blah, blah, blah. But we will get started. Obviously, if you are interested in calling in and giving us your thoughts, we have Collab Cam open. And if you guys want, I'll put the link up and I'll bring you in at the right time, not right away. But I will bring you in when it makes sense, and you can ask these gentle folks some questions, or you can share your thoughts and views on Silent Hill as well. Add source. All right, my friends, here's the link.
First comment says audio is okay.
Excellent. All right.
Awesome.
Let's get in there.
Uncle Rudy.
T.O. Rudy.
T.O. Rudy. There you go.
Can't take Sean's moniker.
There you go.
All right, 1 second. What did you guys watch the Chainsaw Wars last night on Fangoria?
I did not. I don't typically watch award shows. Personally. Yeah.
Yeah, I missed it. I didn't see it.
How are they ever going to make it more than what it is? No, I don't know. I only tuned in to watch the very the best limited release horror film and the best wide release. I loved both of these films that won. Limited release was I just saw for the first time last night. I saw the TV Glow, and then the wide release was Godzilla -1, which was great. But I don't know. Do people really consider Godzilla a horror movie?
I feel like Godzilla, not that I'm an expert because I'm not really big into kaiju movies, but for the ones that I've seen, I think Godzilla -1 has more of a horror tone than the majority of them, especially compared to the American ones. But I wouldn't call it a clean-cut horror film either.
Right.
It's to me, it's kind of its own thing.
What about TV Glow? You guys see that?
I did. I covered it maybe about 2 months after it came out on VOD. I had a chance to see it in New Orleans at a film festival and missed my shot. But I appreciated a lot about it. It didn't quite work for me. It was a bit too slow and a little bit too deliberate with its pace for my taste, for my speed. But yeah, I appreciated some of the things about it, like its metaphoric storytelling and everything. I thought was creative.
Yeah. I'm on board with Cody. I was appreciating the Mr. Midnight and all these monsters, these metaphors. I was thinking, oh, they may be going like a Silent Hill approach, like these people were manifestations of trauma. So again, the ending didn't land for me, but I appreciate the vision. And again, it was made with love. You can totally tell.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was really impressed by the whole thing. I mean, I thought the monsters or whatever they are, I thought Mr. What's his name? Melancholy was just fucking weird as fuck. I love that thing. And you know, I was like, I should have watched it high. Because, you know, I only came to marijuana recently, and about 4 or 5 years ago, and I just realized that it really amplified my love of horror. And not even love of horror is wrong. My ability to be scared by things. I mean, do you guys even get? I haven't been scared at a horror movie or a horror game in decades. I mean, do you guys actually get scared, or you just enjoy it as a fun genre?
Very rarely. Even as a kid, I never really got scared, which was odd. Like I was watching Nightmare on Elm Street before bed at 5 years old. But the last time that I was genuinely like terrified playing a game was Resident Evil Biohazard, because I was playing it for the first time in full VR. And that is
okay. Yep.
That's an experience. If you don't know what's around every corner and all of a sudden something's right here, I mean, that game put me on edge from start to finish.
Right. What about you, Rudy? Do you get scared anymore?
No, I remember the first genuine experience I had with Fear was, again, I'm an older guy, so I bought the first PS1 in '95 when it came out, and I bought
I'm a
Resident
real
Evil 1.
older guy. I had games on the first PS1.
Yeah,
So,
me too.
yeah.
And I remember RE1 came out, and I was actually terrified to play that game. But the last one to genuinely give me fear, well, believe it or not, was Silent Hill 2, the remake. I was texting Cody, God, my anxiety levels are pretty high, man. I'm scared playing this game. I know what's going to happen, but just the atmosphere and playing it with headphones. I love all the nuances they've done as far as the audio and the atmosphere. And what I love most about the games is that they hide a lot of things in shadow. You don't see the monster, you just hear things. I think it just more auditory scares like that do a lot for me anyway. But Silent Hill 2 is the last one, as recent as a couple weeks ago, is scared me.
It's
one thing.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, one thing about Silent Hill 2, like I wasn't super on edge, but I was streaming the entire first playthrough, and so I had my headphones on. And something that was like a really subtle detail in the remake that I don't know if anybody else noticed, because I think you'd only notice it with headphones, is every once in a while you would hear a woman's like gasp for breath in your right ear, like like something like that, like less sexual than what I just did. But
I'm aroused.
You would hear
at the
that
moment,
walking through the hallways.
It'll
like,
pass.
What the fuck?
Yeah. But I heard that as well, and I didn't. The only thing I'll say about the sound, I mean, obviously a lot has been said, rightly so, about how cool it is that the radio comes through the controller.
Yeah.
And I made a video recently about that, about how it's, they've been using the microphone on the PlayStation controller since PS4, but usually it's not as linked to the in-game protagonist thing that usually it's a gun. Right. Or usually it's an engine revving. So it's like, okay, I hear the engine revving coming through here. But when James is holding the radio and it's about this size and I'm holding this and it's coming through the actual speaker, there was something for me that made that actually hit home better than this mechanic has ever been done before. And I wonder was that just me, or did you guys also sort of appreciate or notice that, or it didn't really matter?
I personally didn't even notice that. I don't know if it's because I had my headphones on or maybe because I was streaming and my concentration wasn't quite onto it, but that's a very cool detail. There's been a few of those on the PS5 generation with that DualSense controller where they really tried to like make it less of a gimmick and actually part of the gameplay. Yeah,
absolutely. I was playing with headphones too, and that's the weird thing about this game, because it's like, oh, the 3D audio. But the minute I took my headphones off and I had them off long enough that the game said, oh, okay, I guess he wants audio from the TV now. Suddenly I was like, oh shit. Right. And you really only can appreciate this game in that sense without headphones. But I know the 3D audio is supposed to be amazing in this game. So, I don't know. But yeah, the moaning was interesting because the game does it's got the crackling on the radio when a bad guy's around. But then it has this ambiance on the soundtrack of monsters as well. And it has the ambiance, or not even the ambiance, it's got the woman moaning and things like that. And sometimes I did get a little confused about what the game wanted me to do with the sound it was feeding me. I was like, okay, did I just hear that woman's voice? Does that mean she's in a door that I just passed by? Or I would hear a monster on the soundtrack, which had nothing to do with the game that I was playing. And I was like, oh, that's the ambiance track that has nothing to do with proximity. So it's almost like they should have picked a lane, I think. But I mean, it's fucking awesome. It was excellent. But so you're saying the sound scared you, and the ambiance and the just being in the space, Rudy, was kind of unnerving for you?
Yeah, especially when you understand that the whole game is more or less a metaphor for his repressed sexual urges and his guilt and all these other items. And when I heard the moan, it kind of messes. It's supposed to mess with your head from James the character. So it made sense to me, like, why would they do that? So messed up. Right. But it just adds another layer of like, wow, this is getting really deep into this guy's psyche and the trauma that he's got. So I understood all those things. But again, it does, again, the less you show me, the better off I am as a horror fan. I get more scared because my mind makes up the monster. Show me less and I'll do the rest here and I'll scare myself.
Well, I wanted to ask you guys about that because and again, I don't know anyone really over at Bloober Team or Konami. I don't have a lot of affiliation with Silent Hill. This is the first Silent Hill I played more than 20 minutes in my whole life. I was aware of them. I played them, but when they were kind of in their heyday, I was busy, I was making other games, and you don't have the time to really dedicate like I do now to this stuff. And, when you guys first played it back in the day, the original, I mean, when you put the controller down, when you stopped, were you aware of how layered this is? Because as much as I love Resident Evil, as much as I love, sort of, I'm trying to think of other standard survival horror, realms, whatever. I've never played a game. I have never played a game that when I put the controller down, I was like, okay, I need to process this, and like ever. And I don't know. I assume from talking to fans of Silent Hill 2, the original, that was the same experience, but you guys were a lot younger when you played it. Did you get what it was trying to do, or did you get it was trying to do something different, or it wasn't until you got a lot older that you got what this was?
I think I was too young. I actually missed Silent Hill 2 on its original release. Right. I played the original game on PlayStation 1. I was either 9 or 10 years old. And aside from like Doom on the Sega Genesis, that was the first experience I had with a true horror game. And I just remember being terrified and yet like intoxicated with it, like where I was genuinely scared to open doors. I was scared to walk down the dark hallway. I was scared to walk through the fog any further because I knew something was going to jump out at me, and especially them old school tank controls, that anxiety that creates. But then I could not put the game down. Like I kept borrowing it. I got it from a woman that used to babysit us, and I would just go to her house and borrow it. I actually walked there one day just to get the game and come home because I was just addicted to it. And so for me, it was more just like the atmospheric side of it that really just kind of spoke with me. I don't think I really dove into the story or the lore or anything deeper than that at that age. I wish I could have. But yeah, for me, it was just that like borderline Hellraiser look that it went for that was just very different than anything I'd experienced at that age.
For myself, I was like 21, 22, and I was already married. So I was at the right age to start understanding the context. And for me, it didn't start coming together until I met the character Angela and then fought her trauma, that abstract daddy. And when I saw how he looked, I'm like, why does he look that way? And then I looked at in the booklet, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, this is all making sense now. I'm like, this is her trauma. This is manifest. And then I started putting two together, and I kind of understood what the Pyramid Head meant and James's guilt and what was they were implying. So it really did scare me. Because again, one of my favorite all-time horror movies is Jacob's Ladder, and I saw a lot of inspiration in the character of James, especially his outfit. He's got the military, jacket on. Right. So, and the monsters are shaking like in Jacob's Ladder. So that really sold me and added just another layer of that psychological horror. So for me, once I completed the Angela stage in the game when I first played it, that's when it really started landing. And when I played it again, I started seeing all the connections, like why the nurses are looking that way, the mannequins, like, this is really deep. And like I said, it stayed in my head for 6 years, and I had nightmares for 6 years after the fact, at least once a month.
Okay, I thought when I heard that story from Cody that you had nightmares, it was because you played it when you were like 8. But no. Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, again, as somebody who has made video games and like to think that the stories that we were telling were, written well enough, I was stunned at the clear level of depth that this game has, because I don't know if I've played another game that has that level of depth. And it's funny because, like I said, I love Resident Evil, and I love the fact that now Konami, if they can keep their shit together, and they're, it's 50-50 at this point, but, it's pretty cool to see Capcom and Konami sort of bringing back their signature horror franchises. I'd like to think, though, that this team, which I don't, like I said, I would love to talk to this team, because I loved a game they made called Layers of Fear, which was the first kind of game I encountered from these guys, which in a lot of ways was similar. It was about a guy who killed his family and went crazy, and you didn't realize it until the end that he was the killer. It's clearly had a lot of horror, psychological horror games inspired by this game, the original. But then they went through like just this period of just making not very good horror games. They made The Medium, they made the Blair Witch Project game, they made Layers of Fear 2. The guy who directed this game in Layers of Fear also directed The Medium. And I'm just fascinated by sort of, what causes a team to turn the corner. It can't be pressure of being out of business, because that lasts, and then you get your first few milestones, you feel safe, and then you go back to your habits. So I'm wondering if there was sort of a creative executive or politics or whatever, because when I play this game feels just I don't mean to be hyperbolic, but it feels masterful to me. It feels very filled with thought and in a mind at work, as they say in Hamilton. And I love that, but I'd love to know how they got there. You know, I'm wondering about, like, for whatever reason, I know you mentioned Jacob's Ladder, which I adored, but my head's on film. I think of like Tobe Hooper, right? Who, if you look at Chainsaw and then you look at, let's assume Poltergeist, whatever, let's just say Chainsaw. And then he had this long period where he just didn't make very good stuff. Towards the end, he did kind of, there was some TV stuff he directed that was really fucking good. I know some people have a soft spot for Life Force, but I mean, I only want to bring that up because it's like, do you find in film that like horror creators go through those down periods and come out the other side? Or do you think they have that bright period where they first burst onto the scene and they never replicate it?
I think you see both. You have examples like John Carpenter, where I feel like he had his like massive run of success from the 70s all the way up to like the late 80s, arguably early 90s. And then, people like to talk about the back half of his career where he just kind of ran out of steam for the industry. And then you'll have examples like Wes Craven. And those are two of the most popular examples where he was kind of very hit or miss his whole career, in my opinion. You have the early Last House on the Left, Hills Have Eyes stuff, and then eventually you get Nightmare on Elm Street. Then we get a couple of strange
Shocker
films,
and
Shocker,
My Deadly Friend or whatever, right?
Deadly Friend.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get those, and then he comes back onto the scene with Scream, and all of a sudden, whoa, he's back on top again. And then you get things, like Music from the Heart with Meryl Streep, and so you'll have examples of that. You'll have examples of like James Wan, where he's creating Saw, he's creating The Conjuring, he's creating Insidious, like three of the most massive franchises of the last couple of decades. And then you'll get some horror directors and filmmakers where it kind of feels like they cut their teeth into horror and then they very immediately want to go do other things. And sometimes fandoms won't let them. Wes Craven was kind of an example of that, where Deadly Friend was supposed to be a sci-fi coming-of-age film, and everybody went to see it, and they said, "Where's the gore? Where's the kills? You're the Nightmare on Elm Street,
there was the
dude."
basketball shot.
That was added in later.
That was later?
That was that.
Oh, if you don't know what we're talking about, this beautiful.
Yeah.
I think she's become crazy, but she was the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Christy Swanson.
Yeah,
and she played a robot, right? Mm-hmm. And she kind of had a crush, or the guy next door had a crush, and at one point, she's super strong, and she takes this basketball and just throws it into the Goonies lady, right? Wasn't that her name? What was her name? The Throw Mama from the Train, Mama Fratelli.
Her name, yeah. And
it was awesome. But why they added that later? Because the studio's like, dude, they think it's horror. Give me some gore.
The test screenings were filled with people going to see the Nightmare on Elm Street guys' next film, and they said, "What is this PG-13 80s Amblin Entertainment shit, man? Like we're here for gore." And so that's why you watch the movie and it feels very 80s coming of age, and then all of a sudden you get a dream sequence where a dude's cutting his throat out of nowhere and you're like, what the fuck? And then you get the stuff in the third act. So that's why that movie turns into such a crazy monster. You do have examples like that where somebody does horror and then can't really get away from it because they succeeded so much in horror that for some reason people don't want to see anything else.
Yeah, they're never letting Mike Flanagan do anything other than horror now. He's he's trapped. But I ask also because it's like, to create this stuff, you don't have to be in a dark place at all, but you have to be comfortable exploring that. And like I said, maybe it's a question for the director of this game, but I would love to know what it was about that transition for him where he makes Layers of Fear and the team makes Layers of Fear, and it's brilliant. I don't know if you guys have played that game, but it's really, really, really good. And for a lot of different reasons, it's really, really, really good in my opinion. And then they just can't pull it off. Like, I wonder if there was some kind of maturation of him as a creator of like, I understand this better now. Whereas Layers of Fear was just more like, I'm doing the tropes, but I'm just doing them really, really well. And again, they are building off the bones of a beloved franchise. Let me ask you guys this. I'm going to be all over the place with this conversation if you guys don't mind, because that's my brain. Well, one of the things I love about horror, and I want to specifically Silent Hill 2, But one of the things I love about horror is how it is, and it's a cliche, but it's reflective of the society that we're in at the time. So we're looking at a game that was beloved and was effective in 1996 or whenever the second one came out. And now here we are 30 years later almost. And it's not like the specificity of the horror has shifted as far as I can tell, as society has gone through massive changes. And so I wonder, do you guys look at this and go, it didn't just need a visual upgrade, but it needed almost a psychological upgrade in regards to sort of what scares us today? Or do you think the themes in this are just as scary as they always were because madness never goes anywhere?
I feel like they're pretty timeless. I mean, when you cut it down, it's basically about trauma and regret and guilt. And those are the base of, fears and things that disturb us no matter what era we're in. So you have a lot of different examples. You have like James, obviously, with the ultimate reveal by the end about why he's guilty and why he feels regret and why he's haunted. You have the character that Rudy mentioned about the abuse from her father and then the mental abuse from her mother that she's searching for. You got the kid who feels bullied and then has to, basically turn psycho and has to turns into an evil person to push back on that, which, I mean, that's not to get too dark. That's fairly representative of today's time and what we see a lot in the news with, certain buildings being shot up a lot I read that. Well, keep going. I'm going to write notes down because I got to ask you about that, but keep going. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. It's just the way that they're exploring those themes to me are very universal and they're very timeless. So I never really felt like what they were exploring needed an update. I think it's steadfast in my opinion.
And I would agree with everything Cody said. All that story and all those layers are fine, but I did notice when I was playing the game again that I go, why am I a little bored? Because if you look at the past couple games that have done really well, there's Resident Evil 4, the remake, and Last of Us, the 1 and 2. You're used to scavenging and building weapons and getting that dopamine hit because you've upgraded your gun from level 2 to level 5. And and I can go back out there. There's nothing like that in this game. You just have a wooden club.
Right.
You put it down, you get a pipe now. That's it.
Well, the game, I think the game is bloated and too long. I love this game, and it's probably my favorite game of the year, but the loop of this game, like if I had to get into another apartment building, another labyrinth, another hospital, and it speaks to the quality of the game that I actually stuck with it and finished it, because I drop things like fucking hot potato all the time. But I think, it was it is a bloated game. It doesn't overstay its welcome terribly, but I agree with you. I was getting bored at times too.
Yeah, I had that same issue, especially the last couple of live streams I was doing, where I was just like, God, okay, go into this room, find a vial, go into this room, find an ammo case, go into this room, something jumps out, beat it to death, go to this room, find a key. And so it was a gameplay loop that I found needed to be updated a bit if we were going to get into critiques of what could have been changed. That's one of the things I love about the Resident Evil remakes is they kind of like beefed up the overall gameplay of it for modern times a bit while keeping true to the original. This one, I think there's an argument that maybe it stayed a bit too true to the original.
Yeah. And for me, I think Blooper Team and everybody involved knew exactly what they had in their hands and what they needed to do and take care of this, because it's so renowned. There's people that do video essays on YouTube about the game to this day. So it's cherished, and they knew they had to be faithful to remaking this game, not change it up. Of course, modernize it here and there, and make some little changes, but not to change the gameplay at all. Because if you take anything away from that spirit or that experience, people are going to complain. So again, for me saying I was kind of bored, that was just me based on what the games I've played in the past few years. But that doesn't speak to the game itself. I mean,
I think it does. No. I think it does. I think they deserve all the accolades and kudos that of which there will be and should be many, but that's a problem that they failed to solve, because Cody's right about that. It's like, oh shit, another hallway, another vial, and it's not that the game was like boring, like, oh my God, I just want to gouge my eyes out. But it was like, I played a game recently called Hollow Body, which was very inspired by Silent Hill 2. One-man band, came out last month, and I finished that game, and it's nowhere near as good as this game, but that game was paced better. Like it knew when to get off the stage. It knew when to throw something unique at me that I hadn't seen yet. I do think this game, and I get it. I mean, it's a hard thing to balance, right? You don't want to piss off the hardcore, but the Resident Evil games have the highest completion rate, the new ones, of any game out there. And there's a reason, because they move, man. They fucking move. But I don't think they're as deep. I mean, would you agree? Nobody looks at Resident Evil in the same way, with the same sort of psychological reverence, correct?
Oh no, I think it's actually the antithesis. I think it's like the zany, campy, fun action sci-fi. I think it's the antidote to that, if anything.
Agree. And after this game, which I finished a couple days ago, and I saw the TV glow, I was just like, fucking somebody give me a slasher. I got to go see Terrifier 3 or something. I just need, and even Terrifier 3 is a little deep. Or, well, 2 was a little deep. I don't know if 3's deep, but I need to just see some fucking Michael Bay fucking slashing people up, What about, okay, you mentioned this. I'm curious about this, because I agree with you about the idea of trauma and mental illness and all that, of course, being sadly timeless, at least for the moment. But, you've got Eddie was the guy's name, right? The big dude. And, it was, his father was picking on him. But, what if they would have changed it to a school shooting? I mean, because would it have been that much different? Because I'm assuming that's what you're alluding to. And that, to me, and I don't think Konami would have allowed it, but to me, that would have been, oh my fucking God, I'm going through these hallways. And you're not actually seeing the shooting. You might be hearing it. You might see the aftermath of it, or you might know that he's about to do it, but he hasn't done it yet. And so that's why you fight James. It's like, dude, don't do this again. James fights him. Do you think that would have been a bridge too far? Because for me, that's what horror should explore. I mean, that's the most terrifying thing for kids today, I think, and their parents.
I think the only pushback they would get is the crowd of people that don't want their art to reflect today's life too harshly. It's almost like I want to turn the TV off and get away from that for a bit. But I think that would have been more horrifying. I think that would have hit a little harder for me. And that's coming from somebody with no nostalgia for the original game. So that's definitely a certain perspective to take into account. Like I wouldn't play that sequence and have that character's story be changed and immediately get defensive about it. I would be like, interesting. So I don't know. I wouldn't have been opposed to that. I think that would have been kind of ballsy.
Yeah. I agree. But I mean, go ahead.
No, I don't know if I would have been for it or against it, to be honest. I mean, I think it would have kind of aligned with the character and what he felt. But I don't know, with today, everyone being so sensitive with topics and this still being an issue, maybe it would have been too real for gamers or maybe audiences or maybe the executives of Konami. They don't want to maybe push the envelope that far.
Yeah, I almost think that's why the best horror, even in film, is still happening at the low budget, because they can take those chances. I don't think you could do that with a game of this budget and these expectations, but I think it would have been more disturbing and more grounded in our times.
Or now, yeah.
You mentioned Jacob's Ladder, which, is one of my fucking favorites. And as I started researching for this show and my previous video, I was like, I didn't realize how influenced the team was by that movie. One of the things I loved about that movie, and I'm wondering about it now, is we just saw James pick up a receipt in the pharmacy. And I think that's where we can get the date of this game. I want to say I don't remember if it's 82 or whatever, but one of the cool things about Jacob's Ladder is, it wasn't until the end that you realized that it was when he died, right? It was like 1972 or whenever it was set. And when you went back and you're like, oh shit, all the cars are of that time. All the phones are of that time. Do you notice that here as well? Or is there not enough nuance in the art direction to know if they're doing a similar technique? Because he's been stuck in this loop for, we assume, a very long time, correct?
Yeah, I mean, until you mentioned it, it wasn't really something I picked up on. The fact that there's no like modern technology, there's no cell phones, there's no computers laying around.
There are computers, but they're old. They're like from the early 80s.
Correct. And I think sometimes that's just a direction that people go, even in films, to kind of to get back to basics. There's in a lot of modern horror films, you'll get things like the cell phone problem. It's like, why can't they just call for help? And so a lot of times people try to get rid of those question marks by just setting it in the 80s, setting it in the early 90s, in the 70s. And so I think it might have just been a part of that, or just the fact of when this game came out, they wanted to hold true to how it looked back then and not update it at all.
Are we? Let me give you not my theory. I think this is the prevailing wisdom, but let me just make sure we're all seeing the same thing. So this is James's specific story. Is he was in love with his wife. She got some kind of cancer. Over those 3 years that she was sick, after they left this hotel, he ended up not falling out of love with her, but the burden of caring for her and the burden of what he had to set aside to be sort of the grieving future widow was enough to also bring up a level of hate. And at the end, he murders her. And he's been telling himself for a long time it's because she was in so much pain, even though the doctor's like, look, I'm going to send you home. You're not probably ever coming back to the hospital. She was close to the end anyway. But he murders her, and there's that guilt, but there's the growing guilt of, holy shit, I also was glad to murder her, and I was glad to be rid of her. And then he's kind of stuck in this purgatory where he keeps reliving this over and over and over until he gets to one of the endings that lets him escape. Is that what everybody sees? That's kind of the story?
Close. I took it a little bit more, a little more nuanced than that, with the reveal of where I think she actually did ask for a mercy killing, and I think he just obliged. But his guilt was he didn't do it because she asked him. He did it because like a big part of him actually wanted to do that anyway, and that's what he struggled with, and that's why he told her like, yeah, it's okay. I told you to do it, and he's like, yeah, but that's not why I did it. And so I think that's the bigger part of it, is it kind of leaves a little bit of that ambiguity of it wasn't just, cold-blooded murder. You get the euthanasia debate in there a little bit with what she wanted. Was it a mercy killing? And I think it's just a very cloudy, very in the gray there. And I haven't seen but one ending. The ending that I got was where he leaves Silent Hill with the little girl.
That's apparently I think Konami has said, the original guys have said, all the endings we put in are canon, so it's kind of like there is no official ending, but you got sort of the positive ending, I guess, where he basically is like, comes to terms with it, and the letter says, I want you to live and have a good life, and he takes the one thing in Silent Hill that's maybe worth saving and leaves, correct? I mean, that's...
Yeah, so I looked into the other endings, and one of them in particular kind of made me think a little differently, where I guess he gets into the car and drives it into the lake.
That's the one I got.
Okay, so what I interpreted from that is that car, when the very beginning of the game starts, where he's at that little restroom and he's washing his face, his wife's body is in that car. Yeah. And so he's brought her dead body to Silent Hill to like some kind of way to fulfill the promise of bringing her back to their happy place. And then the rest of it is just kind of him not being able to deal with what he just did. Like I took it as the Silent Hill 2 storyline takes place very, very soon after he smothers her.
Yeah.
And so you're seeing this story of him go through this, mental break and the psychological trauma of everything, and him having to come to terms with what he did. And all these other characters are in this town suffering from kind of the same thing, from different traumas. And then you had this little girl that doesn't see any of these monsters because she's the only one who's innocent. She's the only one that doesn't have any trauma, any kind of guilt, any kind of demons or skeletons in the closet, which is why she's running around, the hospital, everything willy-nilly, doesn't care about all these monsters because she can't see any of them. And so the happy ending is him forgiving himself, I guess, or coming to terms with it, and then trying to make good on his promise by his wife wanting to adopt this little girl and give her a better life. So he leaves with her, and presumably everything's wrapped up in a nice little bow. But that downer ending of him driving into the lake and having the same fate as his wife kind of made me rethink of how the game starts.
Right.
Somebody on YouTube on the PC version of the game kind of like has like a free mod where they can go anywhere. They looked into the back seat, and there is something in the back seat. You can't make it out if it's a body or not, but this blanket just covering the entire back seat. Like they're implying that she's there.
Well, I know the team, and I was surprised because I didn't know in my ending he looks into the back seat, but they don't cut to what he's looking at. And I was like, what? My note when I played it was, what the fuck is he looking at? Right. But when I did the research, the team actually said, yeah, he took the body there. What about the timeline then? Because that's confusing to me. So he kills her, and okay, so he kills her. She died 3 years ago, but somehow maybe he's been, because I'm assuming he's in a loop, correct? Because he keeps finding dead bodies that look like him, and there are notes that he's left behind for himself. I assume that's him leaving notes for himself, like, I'm not going to make it out this time, but maybe this will help you get farther. I mean, I assume that's what's happening.
I always thought it
3
was
years. I don't know.
I always thought he was in that loop until he came to terms and forgave himself.
Right.
And faced his demons and knew what he had done, accepted what he had done. Then he was able to leave.
Okay, so is that where he gets the 3 years from? So it's like he did just kill her, but he's been sort of stuck because
been lying to himself. That's
right.
what I took it as, is she was there for 3 years. She got sent home to spend her last days with him. He smothered her, and then the version of the story that he stuck in his head is she died from the disease 3 years ago, when it was actually I killed her days ago.
Okay. So who do you think the little girl is? Because I have theories, but what is your take on? I mean, she's the way you just described it, Cody. She's just a girl living in a town where no one's there, and she's just. I mean, do you take it literal?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't the hospital that his wife was staying in when she was being treated is in Silent Hill? So that's the one that we visit. So for whatever reason, I don't know if she's sick too. She knew her from the hospital, and so she's just there in the town.
That's what I thought. She was a patient in the hospital as well.
Yeah, so she's
right.
There
but why
in the
is
town.
she the only other person there?
I don't know. That's where Silent Hill gets a little tricky, where it's very dreamlike, and then in a lot of ways it tries to tether to reality, and it's not a very clean lore, in my opinion. That's why it's so open to interpretation. I don't know where all the other people are. I don't know where all the nurses and the doctors and everything else are that would inhabit this town, and why the little girl's there. I read somebody had a theory that she got into the back of the trunk and followed him there, but then I'm wondering how she got to their house. So that doesn't quite work for me either. I think she's just there to be some kind of a representation of him making amends with his wife in some way, like kind of fulfilling her final wish of, I was going to adopt this girl, but then I came home and you killed me. So he kind of adopts her and lets her leave the town.
Right.
That's like his redemption in a way.
Yeah.
Right. What do you guys feel about the ambiguity? I mean, do you think, like, this isn't my theory. I don't think this is anyone's theory. I just thought it up when you were saying that. But let's say if you explore the hospital well enough, you find this note about a patient who talks about seeing all these things that no one else can. So if the game went out of its way to explain, or at least hint, that the reason James and all these people can see her that are mad is because she's almost like the I See Dead People kid from Sixth Sense, and there are all these people walking around the hospital, and it's all still a functioning town and stuff. It's just that she can kind of step in between both worlds, right? The world of the madness of Silent Hill and the actual still quaint functioning town. If that were hinted at heavily, does that make the game better or worse? Like, or do you like that it's left to this kind of, we don't really know what she is like?
For me, I appreciate the ambiguity. I don't want all the answers. I think that's like with great arts, it's subjective. You know, whatever your experience is with the game, you take away with it and it's yours. So the less answers for me that I have, the better off I am in the Silent Hill world.
I tend to go both ways with it. Sometimes I appreciate ambiguity and I appreciate being able to come to my own conclusions, and sometimes it frustrates me. Sometimes I don't want to be given all the puzzle pieces, but I want to at least know that they're all in the box, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah.
Yes. So
what movie or game or TV show or book do you feel gets it right? Like the amount of ambiguity that doesn't feel like the creator's like, hey, I make up whatever the fuck I want, and you can interpret it, and I'll call myself an artist, and I literally am leaving this open because it's almost part of the meta of the context or the subtext.
So I was kind of in the minority of liking this film, but a very recent one that came out is that Halle Berry film, Never Let Go.
Okay.
That is a movie that is very much left with a lot of question marks, where you can come to your own conclusions. And what I really liked about that one is that you have many different things you can take from it, and you can have a lot of different conversations. And I did have a lot of different conversations when I saw it at the Fantastic Fest last month. So you'll have some people that just look at it at surface level. It's about this entity out there and a mother trying to protect her kids. You have some people that looked at it as a trauma story and a mother dumping her trauma onto her kids and how that affects them differently. You had some people that actually saw it as a commentary on racism. You had some people that saw it as a commentary on absent parenting. And I thought it was really interesting how we can all sit in the theater, watch the same film, and all of us walk out with a different take. A lot of people didn't appreciate that about it. They felt that it was too ambiguous and too open-ended, but that was one that actually worked for me because I thought it was fun to kind of talk interpretations with people on a story that traditionally would be very to the point.
Where do you guys think Silent Hill 2 falls? Do you like the level then? I know Rudy, you like the ambiguity, but overall as a game, not just about the little girl, do you guys like where they leave it, or do you wish they would have given you a little more to go on?
I mostly enjoy it. I think it's odd that they have multiple endings and there's not one that's a true ending. That's something I'm not really used to dealing with. There's plenty of games that have multiple endings, but usually there's one they point to as this is the one that is the end of our story. The other ones are just for fun, what if scenarios. And I read that pretty much every Silent Hill game, they don't do that. Like, here's 5 different ways it can end. You choose which one you like better because we're not going to. And they're all very different. I mean, you got one where a dog is controlling everything.
I saw that. Yeah.
And,
I mean, those were
UFO
intentionally
ending.
jokes, but in the main stories, it's either, he comes to term and goes and lives a good life. He kills himself because he can't. He refuses to leave the loop and continues to try to bring her back. And then there's the one, I guess, where he leaves with Maria, which I guess is a positive ending as well. And then there's some people that think the
not
ending,
because from what I read, she coughs.
oh, that's
by the end
right.
of
That's
it,
right.
and
Yeah.
so
So
it hints
she's,
that repeating the whole cycle.
maybe
again.
you should stop coming to Silent Hill. Maybe it's something about the water or the phone lines or whatever. I was going to ask, so like multiple endings. Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people love that. And I know that games can do that unless you're talking about Clue. There aren't a lot of movies that, release with multiple endings. Yeah, I get it. But do you think it weakens the overall intention? Like, do you think it would have been better with a canon ending? Or do you think the medium demands the freedom for it to end?
Like I said before, I think it just having that subjective ending and just, again, the experience is supposed to be personal, just like James's experience and the torture and what he's going through. So I love the ambiguity. I love the endings there. As far as canon, I don't think there's anything else that needs to be told about this story. So it is for whatever you leave the story with, whatever you want it to be based on your experience, and no solidified ending is needed for me.
I think maybe what it is, if you look at the criteria for the endings, like if you get the Maria ending, it's because you've stayed physically close to her character, or, there's like 20 different things on a checklist, right? But my ending was the suicide ending where he drives off the ramp. And I'm like, I certainly didn't, unless the game is so brilliant that I'm actually suicidal, but I don't know it, but the game is able to tell, hey, the guy playing this game would probably take that route, that, like, ideally, yeah, we would have a game that's able to sort of give you an ending that really resonates with you. But given that that's, they're not arbitrary, they're not random checklists, but they, in some ways they may as well be. Like, it never would have occurred to me. I liked Maria in the game, but it never would have occurred to me, oh, I need to physically stay close to her 3D avatar because that represents my enjoyment of her as a character, right? So it's almost like until they come out with that, it almost feels random because it kind of is. And in that, maybe it weakens it. At least that's my take on it.
I agree with that 100%. And that was something I was actually talking about in my post-stream chatting before I logged off last night when I finished the game. Was I was talking with everybody like, I've only played this game once. Like, what the hell? What impacts the ending? Because there was no decisions made. There was no go left or right, save this person or save this person. And they were like, oh, it just depends on little things like how often you heal or how quickly you heal or staying next to Maria. And I was like, who the hell would figure that out? And so for me, it was a little strange. And I'm sure some people think that that's a brilliance of it, that the uniqueness of it. But for me, if I'm going to have multiple paths, I like to be able to kind of pick that path or pick decisions that fit the theme of the ending, as you were talking about. Like,
Yeah.
if you
So
decide,
even if at the end, I want to be able to go, oh, fuck, that's clever. It really read me. And that's why I got the ending. But that's not how I felt either. I just felt like, okay.
Weren't all the endings supposed to be based on the tone of your performance as a character, whether you were aggressive in killing many enemies or maybe avoiding them, being protective of the avatar?
That's one of the there's like I said, you can see online there's like 20 different things, and some of those things you just mentioned are in that checklist. Absolutely.
Yeah, which doesn't make sense to me because I got the happy ending and I was fucking things up left and right. I was going Rambo on those bitches. So I should have got the angry ending if anybody got one.
I want to talk about a couple of the characters that aren't James's direct. I mean, to me, it's it's probably just one of those. It's like, well, you just got to give it to it. It's artistic license where some people in Silent Hill that James can see are dealing with their own shit, like Eddie and what's her name? Angela. And some people are sort of just part of his own psychoses that he's manifesting. And it's like, because it's almost like it would be better if somebody had a theory. It's like, nope, Eddie is part of James, Angela's part of James. All of these people that he's interacting with are some version of him or some aspect of his psyche, but I haven't really seen that, right? So if we go to, let's start with the little girl. I mean, here's my take on little girl, and I don't know why. I think that is their kid. And there's only two reasons I say this. Well, three. One is I don't know what else she could be. And, she's just some random child running around an empty town. What? That seems weird to me, but okay. The other one is that there is kind of something about, like, if you go into the bar and it's like some of these DEI, everything's woke people were like, look at the, I know I have a picture of it. Hang on. If you go into the bar, there's like a neon picture of paradise, whatever. And it's like a woman, like a stripper, but she's got a big belly. And people were kind of like going, oh, look, it's woke. They're trying to say strippers should be fat. And it's like, what are you? Yeah, that was in the original, by the way, and the new one, right? Yeah. And then when James is running from Pyramid Head and Maria is trying to get to the elevator, she could have gotten stabbed anywhere. She gets stabbed in the stomach, right? And so, and there's clearly an affinity towards James, towards the little girl and Mary. I don't know. It felt to me like, I don't know if it's the ghost of his kid or if it's like, look, on one of these timelines, we had this kid, we fucked in Silent Hill. That's where she was consummated. I mean, I'm serious. Otherwise, I don't understand why she's there. And I know, Cody, you're just taking it at face value. Rudy, do you have any theory as to what somebody said she's an angel like in Jacob's Ladder, but I don't know if that holds true or not.
Yeah, I'd have to play. Again, I'm halfway through the remake, and I should be beating it in a couple days. But from what I remember, possibly they're taking some tropes from the original Silent Hill, because you remember the original.
Didn't play it.
Okay, well, there's just one character who's like an evil manifestation of whoever's taking over the town, but then the good side of her, there's two parts of her, the evil and the good, and the good side of her is manifested into a child, and that represents all the good essence of her. So maybe they're kind of taking that rule and bringing it over to part two, where Laura is actually a piece of James's wife, just like a youthful version of her, like she's still living on through her.
And that's a fairly common thing to like that's something that fits a lot of storytelling and thematic exploration when it comes to kids too, because like your kids are like pieces of you.
Yeah.
So a lot of storylines where you have like a mother or a father that died from an accident, disease, or whatever, that it's not uncommon to have the kid be like the last piece of them that's left, that I'm holding on to it because you remind me of your mother or your father. So that would actually, I like that explanation. So I'm going to switch over to Rudy.
Okay, fair enough.
I dig it.
I have no idea. And what about Angela? I mean, Angela's story, if you're watching and you don't know, so yeah, she was sexually abused by her dad. She kills her dad and she kills her brother. I don't know if there's any logic or any storytelling about why her brother was killed as well. But then, yeah, if you look at your screen, it's this thing called Abstract Daddy is what they call it. And it's kind of this boss that sort of just looks like a bed with bodies on it. And I was a little confused by this. I was confused by, hang on. Let me see if I can open that, make that bigger. There we go. I was confused by it because, first off, the image in the game, hang on, I want to make this visible to people. I'm sorry, you guys. Transform. Okay. The image in the game of this is like it looks like two bodies on top of each other, but it looks like the bigger bodies. I mean, I'm just being literal. I'm not trying to like get into details here, but if you look at it in the game, and this is not what it really looks like in the game, it's close, but it looks like a body, at least when you kill it, because that's when I went and looked at it and examined it. You've got the big body lying under the sheet, and then there's a smaller body lying on top of it. And I'm like, literally my mind goes to, wait, what am I looking at here? I thought the dad was molesting the kid. How is this physically working then? Is she choosing to be part of this? Because he's not holding her down. He's lying, and it looks like he's lying on his back. And again, I don't want the gory details so much as I'm like, am I understanding this right? Or is this the dad and the brother? Like, what is this thing that we're dealing with? What is this monster?
The way I've always viewed it, even back when I played it back in 2001, and I think the image in the instruction booklet kind of explained it to me. It's the act of the abuse.
Okay.
Manifested into one object. It's more or less the father on top of, I don't want to get into detail, but it's the act. They're on the bed, and it's the father on top of of Angela, and it's become a monster. So that's what it's manifested as, and there's plenty of explanations online, like they draw it out. So once I saw the images, that it made sense to me what it's supposed to represent, which was very disturbing. That's probably the most disturbing image in my opinion.
Yeah, I think if you look at it like this, what you I don't know if you guys, that starts to make a little more sense. Maybe it's when you kill it, it looks different. Because when I killed it, it looked like they were both flat. Okay, but so why does James have to kill it? I don't really So Eddie kills his dad, and he keeps killing his dad in Silent Hill. James has to kill Angela's trauma. Does that mean that she never gets over it, or that she's stuck in the loop just like Eddie still is because James is the only one that escaped? I mean, it was a little weird that she wasn't the one that basically did the deed, I guess. I mean, what did you guys think about that?
The vibe that I got off of that was like, because it's not uncommon that you hear about somebody that goes through abuse that kind of almost like Stockholm syndrome, like they still have some kind of like a attachment to that person, like they still feel like they need them somehow. And so that's kind of the vibe that I got from her, is like she has this manifested trauma, and there's times where she feels like she's vengeful and she wants to go and attack, and there's other times where it feels like she's a little girl just stuck in an adult's body where she's calling, saying daddy and mommy and things like that. And so
Right.
That's kind of how I got from it, is like she's never really able to break through it, which is why she walks into the flames at the end of it.
The end, yeah.
And I almost got the vibe that she's in Silent Hill looking for her mother to like perform the trifecta where she now kills off the last person of her family that allowed the abuse. And so that's kind of how I looked at it. James did it because it was there, and he's like, shit, I ain't gonna die to this trauma. But she was never gonna be able to.
Yeah. And I would agree with you, like you said, that's why she's stuck there until she defeats it on her own. Because I believe at the end, playing the old one, after James defeats it, she kicks it, right, for a while or something. She like stabs it or something, from what I remember.
I don't know if she did that in this one. She might have. I may have missed it. But I am curious about her exit from the game, because on one hand, she walks into these flames, but on the other hand, she's ascending. Right? It's not like she's going into hell where she's walking down a staircase. It's literally a shot of her going up the staircase that's consumed in flame. And I don't know if I'm thinking about it too much or not, but that seemed a little odd. There it is right there, actually, here. Let's see. She says, it's hot as hell in here. And then she says, you're just noticing that or something.
You see it too?
I don't know if you guys can see this. Probably not.
I think she
For
mentions
me,
like you
it's
see it
always
too.
like this.
It's always like this for me. Is like what she
Yeah.
says.
And then she just walks away, and that's the last we see of her, but she's going up the staircase. So I don't, again, it's weird when a game leaves so much open or a piece of work leaves so much open, you're going to question everything. Some people might just say, well, dude, that's just how they had her walk away because the development team had a staircase that, I don't mean it doesn't go up or down, it's a staircase, But I'm just saying, but it is, right? I mean, that's in a game filled with subtext. The fact that she's exiting as burning staircase going up means something, right? Or am I missing, or am I reading too much into this? What do you guys think?
I just took to her as like the staircase is her
Yeah.
kind of just succumbing, like she's just never going to get out of it. Like, maybe a representation of hell in some way where it's just, she's not going to make it out.
Okay.
Eddie kind of had to be taken down and she's kind of taken herself out of the equation.
Okay. So she doesn't make it out. Eddie doesn't make it out. James, depending on the ending, finally makes it out. It's kind of, and everybody else is sort of a manifestation of James's own particular story.
Yeah, and he's the only one that overcomes his trauma if he's able to get out.
If he gets
the
that
other
ending.
ones don't. Yeah.
So what do you think the game takes a moral stance on? Because there's one piece in the game where you read about the doctors or the prison warden talking about all the prisoners and going, they don't see how ungodly they are. They seem to just be okay with the fact that they're going against God's wishes, blah, 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 blah. And I read that and I see this and it's like every one of these people had a reason to do what they did, right? I would have killed the abusive father. Eddie killed his abusive father. I'd like to think that if I was playing the version of James that killed his wife from euthanasia, I would have done that. I certainly would hope I wouldn't be the kind of person that would do it because he was also falling out of love with her. But none of them are bad, right? I mean, do you think the game is built around acknowledging that and going, it is gray? Or do you think because they all are caught in this loop that the game is saying, yeah, you shouldn't have done any of those things. You should have just suffered because fuck you. I don't know what is it saying in that sense?
I don't know if it's taken a hard stance. And I think that that's kind of more exemplified with how I kind of took the James and Mary thing, where I don't think it really takes a hard stance on black and white, one's wrong, like James, a cold-blooded murderer, or she was a horrible person. Because they even put dialogue in there that she was like mentally abusive as she was deteriorating.
Oh yeah, she was awful. She said to people.
Yes, and so I think that the whole thing is more just about how people deal with it themselves. Because your things are rarely black and white. Things that give us traumatic experiences and affect us in a negative way. Sometimes it's very in response to somebody else. Sometimes it's a little bit of what you bring to it or what you allow to happen. And so I think it just kind of plays in that gray area for me.
Is that
for me?
Oh, go ahead, Rudy. I'm sorry.
No, for me, I don't think there's any morality, but I think it does bring light to the dark side, maybe possibly all within us. For James himself to be being the caretaker for somebody you love for many years and to see them slowly die and not doing anything about that. I've spoken to people who are caretakers, and part of them is like, I want my life back, but you don't want to say that out loud because it's wrong. So it does deal with that darkness within every one of us. And we do love this person. We want to spend time with them, but at the same time, I want to move on as well. So I think it is no morality, but I think it does bring to light the darkness within us when there's moments in our lives that things go horribly wrong and we have these thoughts. And that's what I think that's what's brilliant about this game.
It reminds me of Zelda from Pet Sematary a lot, where
which one was Zelda?
Zelda was the sister that was dying and contorting on the bed, and the character more or less said like, yeah, like we all loved her, but we all hated her, and part of us wanted her to die. And she croaks and she's like, I ran out and everybody thought I was crying and I was laughing. And so very
Right.
twisted, dark stuff.
Well, sometimes dead is better, Cody.
Yeah,
Sometimes. So, okay. But I'm wondering when I hear you say that, Rudy, about we all have this darkness. Now I'm starting to wonder about maybe that's where, at least for me, the game did need an update in its themes, maybe, because I'm going maybe 20, 30 years ago, it was easier, at least for my brain at 20 something, to be more black and white, right? But now I look at it and I go, why are you punishing these people? Eddie's dad was a fucking nightmare. Angela's dad was a fucking incestual rapist. They're, you know, I wonder if in today's society, if you were Angela or you were Eddie, would you feel guilty, or have times changed? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you think it lands as well? Like, would this really trigger that guilt anymore for people? Maybe it would. Maybe I'm just a hedonist. I don't know.
No, that's a great question, and I think that's what has people, even before the remake was announced, there were people still talking about this game. Like I said, I love watching video essays on the topic because I love getting everybody's different point of view for this game. So I think the subject matter, yes, it's something that you really don't want to maybe experience in a video game, but it is real and it does happen. And the human response and the psyche of everybody dealing with that is manifested in this world that you have to maneuver through, I think is why people still talk about it to this day.
When I did Twisted Metal Black, which took place in an asylum, or at least the intros and some of the movies, I didn't have many, but I had a few people talk about, we may have even gotten a letter from some sort of organization on mental health going, you know, we don't like that you're basically taking people who are suffering from mental illness and, you know, turning them into entertainment products, you know, and at the time it felt like, oh, shut the fuck up, you know, right? Because it's like, you know, but I do wonder, maybe there is a point that we've gotten to as a society where we look at mental illness now and we're more compassionate, we're more understanding. We know it's much more, I don't mean that you're going to go out and kill people, but that we have those dark sides, and maybe it becomes harder, at least for my brain, to sort of embrace it as a horror trope anymore. Because I just look at it as going, who hasn't had some kind of mental illness affect their family in some way, shape, or form? And it's not the boogeyman under the bed anymore. It's, you know, I understand it more. And I wonder if maybe as we continue down that road, I wonder what horror will do with it. I wonder if it'll be like, yeah, it doesn't hold water anymore. I don't know. Am I reaching, or do you agree with that?
I don't know. I think it'll depend on each individual person.
Yeah.
Like we were saying, I think a lot of what it's exploring is still pretty relevant and is still pretty, you know, universal.
If you killed your father because he sexually abused you, would you carry guilt?
Hard to say unless that happens.
I know, but what do you think? I don't think I would. I think I would be like, I kind of like Samuel Jackson in A Time to Kill. He said, "You goddamn right, I did it, and I'd do it again."
Well, I don't even think that guilt is the exclusive piece of being in the Silent Hill mindset. I think it's just trauma overall. Some of it's guilt.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. That makes sense.
Yeah, because like you have, like I think that Angela's more the trauma side of things. I think that James is a mix of both. And you have Eddie in there that I think has a sprinkle of guilt. Like he's the one that eventually turns into an enemy by the end of it, the only one. But the first time that you meet him, he's throwing up in a toilet because he just saw a guy's dead body, which I don't know if that's supposed to represent his father.
I imagine
like
it was, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, again, I don't have any experiences that would relate to these characters, but I'm sure there are people that is just black and white. No, I feel no guilt. I feel no remorse. I feel no trauma over this. This is what had to happen. You know, the Samuel L. Jackson route. But the three characters that they decided to dive into, I think, are more in the nuanced side of it, where even though what they're doing, like especially on Angela's side of it, most people would say is very justified. There's still like there's still some turmoil there. There's still some regret of that it had to go down that way or whatever.
And To answer your question, David, I think some people would still feel love. I mean, because deep down, you only have one mother and one father, and you can't really choose them. But that role
Not
is
love, not love, guilt.
yeah, but that role is paramount in everybody's life. So maybe you wanted a version of them, and you never got that. And the common denominator with Eddie, Angela, and James is that they were pushed to their limits. And they
by
reacted
people who were supposed to love them and that they were
Exactly.
supposed to love. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah,
great. I
so-
think it's really smart. Yeah.
So again, I think deep down the victim possibly would still feel some love for what could have been.
And thus they would feel guilt.
Yeah.
So let's talk Pyramid Head real quick. Pyramid Head is obviously James. Why is it a pyramid? And why are there two of them at the end? I don't understand this character at all. I understand that he represents that dark version of him. Is it something from Silent Hill 1 that I missed? I know there's these like KKK hoods, the Red Hood guys and stuff. Maybe it's just part of the lore that doesn't really seep into Silent Hill 2. So if you know, you know, but if you don't, he's just a scary guy.
Rudy, you can take that one because I'm curious too.
Well, from what I know, like the Pyramid Head was like a design from one of the artists from Silent Hill. Like he had that design like in the 90s, but the pyramid, more or less, he's covering his face. He can't bear to look at himself. So I know like not being able to see him that's why the mask is there. And he's a representation of all the negative feelings that he had, all the sexual frustration that he had. That's why he's doing what he's doing to those mannequins. But the guilt that he carries is also manifested in the sword. That's why he's dragging it along with him. He's burdened to drag that guilt with him.
Right.
That's what I know of Pyramid Head. But outside of that, I don't know. But again, that is a manifestation of his demons, of his inner self.
Got it. Okay. What about the mannequin? I was going through all the enemies, and I don't, my understanding is the enemies are metaphorical as well, but I don't really understand some of them. I mean, I like them all. They're very cool, but the mannequin, for example, you're saying there was sexual stuff happening with the mannequins?
Well, from what I've read and known, every enemy in there's like some sexual nuances, and they're all like female. If you look at them, like there's the mannequins, not the mannequins, the ones that are in the straitjacket in the beginning, you see their legs, they all got high heels on.
That's
they're
right.
Nurses,
Yep.
Same thing, low cut dresses. And again, it's supposed to represent his sexual frustration during those 3 years. And again, where he's at right now, because even in the Heaven's Night club scene, which I thought was brilliant, where Maria is kind of teasing him, like, let's stay, have a drink. And he's looking at the drink. And I love the actors in the remake. He's just
I
staring at
agree.
the drink.
They
He's
did
tempted.
great.
He's totally tempted in giving in to this, but he knows deep down he can't because he's burdened by his guilt. So again, every enemy in the game is again a reflection of his inner psyche, that frustration.
So the reason I ask on Mannequin, because this is officially called Mannequin, which doesn't have a head or anything, and I was just like, what the fuck is this one? I couldn't figure out what this was meant to be.
If I had to take a stab at it, it's two pairs of open legs.
Yes, there you go.
And that's kind of where I went with it.
Okay.
That's why Pyramid Head has got the legs up in that one scene that everyone talks about.
I see. Okay. All right. All right. Well, you're a fucking freak, Cody. I got you. I appreciate that. Now I understand. And what I also found interesting in this was there were times in the game where you could hit X on things and it would just cut to a close-up of something, like the refrigerator, for example, with Eddie's dad. I assume it was Eddie's dad. But in the bar you're talking about, there was like a close-up. You just hit a X and it's a close-up of a bottle of alcohol. And there's another one that is a lost and found.
The ring.
There's the ring and the wallet with clearly a blonde lady, which is probably Mary, kind of poking out, which I guess is to imply that he spent a lot of time there and he left a lot of that shit there. I thought just that, I don't know if that was in the original, but I loved that in this one, there's no gameplay to it. You just hit X, but it's like, hey, if we're going to let you hit X on just a piece of art in the level or a model, there's a reason for it. I thought that was just really smart.
And did you notice the posters within the club looked like Maria?
Yes.
So his wife was more or less in the posters themselves. So like, that was brilliant.
And she's the sexy lady that he wishes his wife was and hadn't lost, basically.
Yes.
Is kind of what her vibe is. Okay. Can we talk about, I want to have one more monster thing, but I'm curious if you guys picked up on this. So towards the very beginning of the game, and I think they only did this once, and then they did something I thought that was either intentional or not. I loved it. But towards the beginning of the game, they had this thing where you go through this gate, and I recorded it because I wanted to make sure I saw what I thought I saw, where you open the gate and there's one of those straitjacket lady monsters there, but she's only on frame for she's only in there for 2 frames or whatever, and then she's gone. And it's meant to just kind of catch your eye, you know? And if you go back and rewind it, that actually happens. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool, whatever. But I didn't see them use that again. But what I did start seeing was a lot of, I guess what I was kind of calling, it's like they seem to get away with, in a great way, shape design. And this is why I would love to talk to the team, because it's like there were so many times when with the light being dark and the shapes, I turned the camera and I was like, oh shit. Right. And it was nothing. In this case, it was the shape of a tree, right, that had been cut down. You know, I'm not going to go through all of them, but there was lots of that. There's the pregnant thing in the bar, by the way, the pregnant lady on screen. I mean, that's not nothing, right? I mean, why has she got a belly like that? It's prominent. I'm not judging her like, oh, strippers shouldn't have bellies. That's what I'm talking about. But that's intentional, right?
Yeah.
But what does it mean?
The original. What does it mean? I don't know. I don't know what it means.
That is what we are here for, Rudy. We have
Tell
to
us, Rudy.
We
Some
have
guys
to
like
bury
curvy
this.
women. There you go.
That's not curvy. That's muffin top, baby. I'm just wondering. I'm just saying that and there's the lost and found. There's the alcohol. But like here, for example, these creepy shapes, right? You turn and then you've got what looks like a fucking Scooby-Doo ghost. I'm like, what the fuck was that, right? Was that just me, or did you guys pick up on that, or do you think I was just sort of susceptible to it, but that was not something you guys grabbed?
I personally didn't grab a hold of that one, no.
Okay.
But I was also, it's a very different experience. I wish if it wasn't for the sake of streaming it because my audience really wanted to, I probably could have dove into it a lot more if I was just
I stopped streaming single player games for that reason. My experience as a gamer and my ability to talk about the games at a level that I'm comfortable with after the fact is not possible. Like, I hated The Last of Us Part 2 when I first played it because I was playing it on stream. And now it's one of my favorite games. I love it. But I had to go back and play it and go, okay, this is me time. I'm not worried about what the stream is saying, because you can't, that it's not like we're talking about, Call of Duty multiplayer. It's a single player game. That's my new thing. But we have a very different kind of show. Okay, all right. But I maybe if I'm fortunate and I can talk to the artist, I can ask him that, because I saw a lot of these shapes in the game that just popped out at me, and I was like there was one point where you're talking about those mannequins with the spread legs, where there were these like pylons. And, again, as a guy who's made games before, I understand iterative set pieces where it's like, we've got the same tree. We can, in real time adjust it a little bit so it just doesn't look like a stamp, but we're you're going to see repetition because it's just faster. But in this case, I hadn't anywhere in the game, I never saw these traffic pylons that were shaped like these legs in the distance. And when I came upon them at first, I'm like, oh shit, that's a mannequin. It's like, oh no, they're just traffic cones. Right. I thought that was really clever. And if it wasn't intentional, it should be, because it gets you free horror. I mean, that's one of the tricky parts about horror in games is in movies, these directors, understandably, they're like, hide the monster, hide the monster, hide the monster until you absolutely have to show the monster. But to this game's credit, I mean, you didn't have many monsters, but you saw them all the fucking time and they still seem to work. But let me ask you guys this, and I don't mean to ramble, but I get so excited about these topics. And then we are going to go to the audience because I want to see what they have to say. But you guys are more movie horror aficionados than game horror aficionados. I think that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I love my horror games, but
your experience of right.
Yes.
And I ask that because I have found so many horror games, or that claim to be horror games, simply take the window dressing of horror film language and go, if we apply that, we're horror. And as I've played more horror and spent time back in the past making games, it's like, I think there's a different language that's necessary for interactive horror. Like the worst kind of interactive horror that just takes the window dressing are these cheeseball haunted houses at Halloween. that are like, aren't clowns scary? Remember it? Here's the guy, and he's not lit. You can stare at him all night long. He's just standing there. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Like, what games can do different that can really scare you, that is not just taking the visual iconography of the movies that were scary?
I think a lot of it comes down to the gameplay, because that's the big thing that separates the two mediums. Like, you can have the same visuals, a similar sound design and things like that, but for me it's more like putting you in the shoes and you have to actually be the active person. Like, I was talking about Resident Evil Biohazard earlier, and there's a spot in the first 15 minutes of that game that I will never forget.
Just so we're clear, Biohazard is the one with the family, the fucked up Peacock family living in the house.
Yeah, the one that's
7.
very Texas
Okay,
Chainsaw
got it. Okay, yeah.
in the beginning. And so playing it in VR, there's a spot where you find your girlfriend or your wife, and then she disappears and she seems malevolent. And there's this one door that's open. It's the only place that you can go. You know that's where you have to go to continue on. And as you, especially with the 3D audio, as you approach the door, you hear breathing like from downstairs. And I remember in that moment going, I don't want to fucking go down these stairs. I don't want to take this next step. If it was a movie, you're on the rails. You know, it's going to take you wherever it takes you. But for gameplay, for me to be truly scary, is to make you desperate to find any other way to continue. And or any other way to get past what you're doing. And so there's few examples that are that effective for me, but that to me is the big difference of the two experiences.
For me, I think video games have a definite advantage because you're in control of the character and you're feeling what they're supposed to be feeling, and you're going through the experiences with them, because you actually can your actions will result in the outcome of whatever's going to happen. As far as scary experiences, I think I don't know if anybody's played Fatal Frame. But Fatal Frame,
a little bit.
Yeah, 1, 2, especially 3. I remember playing that game, and again, it's just the atmosphere, the audio, and I remember at one point pausing the game, and then after a while, I started seeing faces on the screen and handprints come up on the TV screen. Like, whoa, what's that? You know, just off the corner of my eye, I'm like, oh, they added that. That's insane. But the one game I think that's terrified me the most that never got developed was PT, Silent Hills.
That actually scared you, that game?
Yeah, just because it was so it wasn't like the normal game. Like, as far as the puzzle solving, it was very difficult. It was just finding pictures of a photo that was ripped up, and just the experience in the loop, and just trying to solve puzzles that weren't traditionally what you found in the game.
Right.
But just the atmosphere and just how different it felt. That, I think that game is probably the most terrifying for me. What
scared me about that game, honestly, was years later, when I learned that the ghost, I don't know what her name is, maybe it's Mary, the woman, is always behind you, but because it's first person, you don't know. So the developer is just like, no, just have it always track him, and we'll bring her out when we need to. And I'm like, that fucker's been following me all these years whenever I play that game every Halloween.
But you can hear her every now and then, like breathing or like making noises right behind you. Like, where's that coming from? Yeah.
But the one thing I'll say that I always struggle with that is, that, you know, in a movie, they have all of this time to make you like the character. And so you feel, for whatever reason, at some bizarre level, because A, you know they're probably not going to die if they're the hero, and B, you don't really know them, but you don't want them to die and get hurt, and it's scary. In a video game, I think because death is so cheap, like there's, you know, if James dies in this game, I'm like, eh. Right? Or if I walk into that, I go downstairs in Resident Evil Biohazard, I'll have the jump scare that I'm scared of. But I don't know. Rudy, are you saying that you actually worry about, like how does death, like you're worried that the character's going to die, so that adds some tension for you? Like at an emotional level?
At times, not every character. Like when it comes to like Leon Kennedy, no, I don't care because the guy's like a badass. I don't care. But when it comes to characters I have like sympathy for and like feel empathy for, like James,
right, or
like the female characters you're playing in a Fatal Frame.
Okay,
there's something more to it. But yeah, I do care. Even with games like Until Dawn, I think they did a good job in bringing that horror movie element into a video game. I think they did a great job with that. But yeah, I definitely feel sympathy, maybe to the female characters. I don't know if that says something about me.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, maybe the better the characters are developed in some way, shape, or form, that's going to amplify the fear. Maybe that's an area they can target and say, you know, whether it's cutscenes or ideally in the game itself, we need to make you really like, you know, we need the character to save the cat by the end of the 20 minutes in. So you really do not want them to die. I want to jump to one more topic, then I want to go to the audience, if you guys don't mind. I want to talk about the puzzles in this game for two reasons. One is at just a mechanical level, right? Which is I loved the fact that this game had actual puzzles in it. And it wasn't the Uncharted puzzles. It wasn't the God of War puzzles. And I don't mean just Atreus solving things for you, but in terms of just like pull the lever, rotate the mirror. It was like I was taking notes in this game. You know, I was like, you know, and I loved that. And I get the fact that the audience is so different today that you can't really do that unless you offer something else for the audience that doesn't want that. But my God, to play this and think about a Nathan Drake game where I'm actually solving Indiana Jones style puzzles and having to think about, wait a minute, what do these bracelets mean? And I have to put them on the wrist in the right order and then rotate I get it. You know, I loved that. So here are my two questions. We've kind of advanced in video games. If you guys have played things like Zelda, the last couple Zeldas that are very freeform. And even the producer of Zelda said recently, he's like, I fought that tooth and nail because it's just not the normal design philosophy. The normal design philosophy is here's the lock, here's the key. And we realized it was better if we let you solve it however you want. So I go in towards the end of this game where you have to put the lighter together to light the big piece of cloth that's holding the cage up or whatever. And I'm going, would this work as well if it was more like Tears of the Kingdom? Because in Tears of the Kingdom, it's like, hey man, if you can find a way to get the fire over there, don't worry about putting the lighter together. Just figure out a way to get the fire over there. Do you think horror could hold that design philosophy? Does it make sense what I'm saying? Or do you think it needs to be more like Silent Hill with these kind of staccato, get this, then this, then this, combine them. That's how you solve it.
I would be curious to try it. I think that type of design fits like an action adventure fantasy type thing a little bit better, because I think that horror has to be very structured to maintain the experience and what they're trying to elicit in you. So I don't know if having a lot of that freedom of building things or traversing certain elements to different pieces of the map, I don't know if that would get in the way of that or not. I think that they want you to be focused on what's going to jump out of every corner more so than the puzzle mechanics. So I'd be curious to try it, but I don't know if it would work as well. What I appreciated about the puzzles in this one, which you kind of leaned into, is I liked how they didn't hold your hand. I was playing in standard, and there was a couple puzzles where I was sitting there like, what the fuck? Like, what am I doing? And so there was a few there that did get me for a few minutes. And there was a couple where I had the solution right in front of me and just didn't register for me right away. Like there's a suitcase, a briefcase that you have towards the end of with the 4 words. Yeah. And in the same exact room, you have the 4 words written there, but I was hauling ass to the other end of the hotel for a minute where I was like, I must have missed something. These 3 pictures I found must be clues. And I get about halfway there and the light bulb goes off and I'm like, fuck. And then I go back and I put the words in. And then the one the pretty early on in the game where you're in this room where there's a bunch of drawings and you have to shine the light on certain ones and they'll illuminate just slightly more.
Oh, the X-ray.
I probably spent one? No, before that. It was in the apartment building.
I was an hour in that room.
Wasn't quite that bad. I was probably about 5 minutes, but 5 minutes felt like an hour where I'm just like, I don't know what to do. Like, did I walk into this room too early and I need something that I don't have? And then finally I barely brushed a light past something and I was like, oh, there's a number there. Like, I like the fact that there's not the little hint markers that come
Right.
up, or you don't have like a Mary's voice whispering to you like, shine the light on the wall, bitch. Or,
Right. I mean,
like
it's a brave and risky move on the part of a
Mhm.
developer spending this kind of money, because there's a lot of people that, and I don't know what happens if you take it off standard, because I played standard as well.
Correct.
I did notice that James would write a lot of shit on the map. So after about halfway through, I'm like, oh, I don't need to take notes. The game's taking notes for me, which
Yes.
I wonder. I mean, at that point, if you got rid of that, I wonder if I would have liked it more or less. It certainly would have been more immersive, but there probably would have been puzzles I would have been like, wait, what?
Yeah.
You know,
For the first couple hours, I didn't realize he was either. There was a spot where there was some symbols, and I actually, like, while I was streaming, I was like, hang on, guys. And I closed YouTube and I took a picture of it.
Yep.
And then I went back to my stream. And then whenever I went to the room, I was like, oh, he already wrote this shit down.
That's right.
I guess I don't need to do that.
What about on the puzzles? There were two that I was very confused by, because I thought they would affect the ending, but they didn't. And so now I'm going, why were these here? The first one was the coin puzzle in, I want to say, the hospital or the first apartment building, where you have the two coins that you can rotate, or the one side is like the man and the other side is the sun, and one side's the woman and the snake and the fruit or whatever. And I loved that puzzle, that you had to sort of tell the story in order and rotate the coins to be the right story. But then it asks you something. It's like, okay, so who was the bad guy, or who was the killer?
And the noose as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And I chose the man. I assume fundamentally all this was put into play because he was coming after the woman. But I guess you could have chosen the noose or the snake or whatever. But I was hoping to have some payoff to that. Like maybe, oh, is that why I got the ending I did? Do you understand what that was and why it mattered who the killer was?
No, I made the same choice that you did. I followed the breadcrumbs back to the man being guilty, and then later on in the game, when you get the 6 nooses and you have to pick which one is ultimately the most guilty, I thought the same thing. I was like, I wonder if this is going to impact things. And I was kind of surprised when I was asking my chat audience. Nobody said like, oh, it was those 2 choices back then. That's why you got the ending that you did. Everybody was just like, oh, you healed a little faster than most people. And I was like, really? Okay. Because those very much should tie into the ending, I would think, because you're basically, you're very much giving a read on who you are. Like, who do you feel is most guilty? What story do you resonate the most with? That would make sense to me if those were the most weighted decisions you made in the game.
And and the noose thing also, right, didn't really come back into play, did it? As far as you
and
could tell?
I was nervous to pick one. I was like, do I die if I pick the wrong one? Do I get like a different boss fight? And I just picked it. He wakes up, and I'm like,
okay.
I
tried to pick the least guilty, because that did seem to be in theme. And I'm curious, which one did you pick from the noose puzzles? Do you remember?
I think the one that had to steal things to survive.
Okay.
And somebody in the chat says those coins do affect the ending, so maybe they are weighted in there somewhat.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I picked the one about the dad who took the kid, because at least that one, I'm like, maybe the kid was being abused. I don't know what happened to the kid. All the other ones felt definitively, Okay, before we go to the chat, which we're about to, is there anything else you guys wanted to bring up to talk about that we haven't hit on?
I'm very curious for your perspective on, do you think it was a good decision or a silly decision for them to start this Silent Hill remake train with the second game? Clearly they did it because it's the most popular.
Right.
But as for me, I've been wanting to replay that first game for so long. I was actually frustrated when I found that out, because there's a HD remaster of 2 and 3 that's just on the Xbox 360, PS3 generations, just from a couple years back. And I haven't been able to play Silent Hill since the 90s. And so I'm curious on what your perspective is. Do you think that was clearly just a business decision? Somebody said, we're not even going to bother with the first one.
I honestly don't, so I know the sort of the pyramid heads, I guess that's what I'll call them now. I don't know what the fan base of Silent Hill 2 is, but the whatever they're called, I'm sure that they would tell you, oh, no, you have to have, because there's a lot of things we're talking about where a lot of people would have said to me, oh, no, see, if you play the first game, that tunnel makes sense, or this makes sense, or that makes sense. And I'm like, and they might tell you it's important, and I'm sure it is to some degree, but I think this is the most popular and this is the most beloved. And I assume if it's maybe also the developer looked at it and said, there's a lot more we can do with this. There's a lot more meat on the bone. I don't know if the first one, they would have had to create a lot more that was implied. I don't know enough about it to know, but I think this is a wise choice. Honestly, though, what I hope, a lot of people are like, oh, let's hope Bloober Team makes more Silent Hill games. I'm like, no, man. The fact is, I mean, these guys, again, I would want to know what caused them to turn the corner with their studio, but these guys have done nothing but horror. It's clear they love it. It's clear they have a real soft spot in their heart for it. And I want to see what they do now that they are firing on all cylinders, and assuming that this is, replicable in terms of quality, and we're not going to get Blair Witch again, or we're not going to get The Medium again. We're going to get what they are now capable of doing on a semi-regular basis. No one bats 1,000. I want to know what's in their, attic or basement of horror. I don't want remakes from these guys. If these guys are now currently the top of the food chain for actual psychological horror, I want psychological horror that's built for 2026 or whenever it comes out, not just a remake. And so I hope that even if they do stay with Silent Hill from a Konami standpoint, that these aren't the guys that do it. But I didn't play one, so I don't know if it was a mistake or not. But clearly, people are loving this.
Yeah, the only thing I could think of if I'm going to try to give them the benefit of the doubt is that, from what I understand, I never played the third game, but that one's a direct sequel to the first one. It's the little girl from the first one, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
Maybe their mindset is 2 is very much a isolated story where you don't necessarily need to experience the other ones. So they're going to give us the world of Silent Hill, see if people are digging it, see if people like this remake, and then they can go back and tell 1 and 3, because they kind of went weird out of order with Resident Evil too. They did 2, 3, and 4, which is all the Leon Kennedy Raccoon City storyline. And now, I mean, they haven't announced it. I'm hoping they go back and they do 1 Code Veronica 5
from that camera and all that stuff, right? Like,
yes, to tell the Chris Redfield storyline. So, and even you have the Metal Gear Solid remakes where they're starting with 3. That at least makes more sense because that's the first one canonically,
right?
But yeah, that was the one that puzzled me, where I was just like, damn, are we really just cutting to the popular one? Like, give me 1, damn it.
Yeah, it's too, these days games cost too much at this level to, you got to put as much on you got to kind of put as much sure thing as you can, I suppose. But
gotcha.
Anything else before we go to the chat?
No.
All right, let me see what these guys. I've been ignoring the chat, and I apologize, but I can't do 2 things at once, as you guys know who watch the show. So let me go and see what you guys would like to talk about. Bo Bandy says Jaffe's number 1. Of course, we know that. Twisted Sith says Jaffe's a menace, and I want his beard on my body. All you have to do is spend the right amount of money, pal, and I'll be there for you. All right. So I am not going to roll back to all of the chats. So why don't we start from now? If there's something you want to talk to Rudy and Cody or me about as it relates to Silent Hill, this is the time to do it. You can call in, or you can just put it in the text, and we're not obviously going to get to all of them, but we'll get to the ones that we think are most interesting. Trevor says Eddie killed his bully, not his dad. LOL at the bully's dog. I thought it was his father. Are you guys? I thought it was the dad who he killed, but it doesn't matter. But am I the only one that took it that it was his father?
I honestly, I don't remember. That was earlier on in the game, and like I said, I was kind of
Eddie was the one.
In a lot of different directions.
Yeah, that's true. Eddie was the one. The meat packing. I thought that was amazing. The meat fight.
Yeah,
with the slabs of meat. And I thought the other thing that was really scary was when you were turning on the switches in the prison, and you only had so much light, and so you're sitting there just going, I thought they could have done more with it, but it was cool. Cody Ryan says, what are your thoughts on a sequel which they've just announced to Alien Isolation?
Oh, they did just announce it. I didn't know that. Awesome. I hope they make it a little bit more of an efficient story. Alien Isolation, like, you want to talk about bloated games? Jesus Christ. I think the concept was great, but I was streaming that one going like, I got to be towards the end, right? And then I look and I'm like not even a quarter of the way through the game. So that one was a really good proof of concept. I just hope they fine tune it a bit more, tell a story that's more efficiently told, and bring a few more elements to it. Because as much as it was definitely tense, that gameplay loop definitely got a bit redundant after it. I'll be generous and say halfway through it.
The Art of Interactive Entertainment says the other Silent Hill games are not that popular. He's asking. I mean, they're popular, but again, even Silent Hill 2, these games have never been, they've been beloved. They're classics, but they're not like, they don't sell as well as Resident Evil. And I don't think anybody would expect them to. I don't know what the expectations are on this one. I would be curious. Today is the first hint we'll get of how it did over the weekend, because we get box numbers from GameIndustry.biz for what happened in the UK, and that oftentimes tends to be an indicator. Eddie T says all the Silent games are amazing. Yeah, I don't think it's an issue of quality. It's just an issue of these are slower, they're psychological, they're, compared to, like we were saying, the pulpiness of Resident Evil, those are going to do a lot better. So Movie Maniac agrees. He says Eddie just shot a bully for talking shit to him. Okay. I thought it was the dad. Okay, I don't know why. Bloober has Ito and Yamaoka from Team Silent in key roles. I think that the OG series producer as well. So I don't think they would have let it turn out poorly. Yeah, I mean, it could just be that. Maybe those are the real stars of the thing, and it's where they go next or what they do next. Did anybody grab Retro Realms Halloween Ash versus the Evil Dead 16-bit game? That's out on the 18th, I think, Eli. Maybe it's out already. I will be getting it. I hear it's excellent. I won't be getting both of them because it's like $50 for both, and I'm a Michael Myers fan. Well,
it's expensive for 16-bit games.
And there's two of them, but Gaming Doppelganger Ganger doesn't agree. I don't know if he's talking about Silent Hill 1 or 2, but it sounds
I think
like
he's talking about Alien Isolation in regard to what I just said.
Oh, then it wasn't bloated. But I think we all agree this game was bloated. Silent Hill 2 needed some cutting.
I'm not there yet. I haven't beat it yet, but so far no. I don't know yet.
Right.
I agree. It could have been a little more efficient for me. It would definitely.
So far, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
If it had changed up the gameplay a little bit throughout, I don't think it would have felt it as much. But by the time you get to the hotel and it's just like, okay, 3 new maps of going through all the different rooms.
Right.
And so it got a little redundant.
Oh,
for
yeah.
me
You get to
as
the
somebody with
hotel
no
and you're like,
nostalgia.
oh, fuck, there's 3 floors and a basement. Come on,
Yeah.
man. Come on,
Yeah.
man. Okay. Trevor says, someone I saw said each character represents a level of hell. Eddie has always breathing like it's cold. Angela is fire. And James is water, which would make the in-water ending possibly canon. Well, I did notice.
That makes sense.
I did notice somewhere in the game, and I couldn't find it when I went back, that I want to say there was some reference to Dante's Inferno, like a picture or something. And then I did notice that James was consistently dropping down, right? It was like, do you want to jump? Are you sure you want to jump? And he jumps. And sometimes it's his grave, or it's a hole, or it's a floor.
That got on my nerves so bad.
I know.
And when he's going into the hole, I'm like, yes, I'm not changing my mind. Go.
But it was interesting because the last time it asked you, it only asked you once. And again, when a game delivers this much enjoyable ambiguity, you begin to assume it's everywhere. So I'm like, why in every single hole that you jumped into, it said, are you sure? And you say yes. And it's like, are you really sure? But the last one, it's like, are you sure? And you say yes, and he jumps. And it could just be, because the guy who set that up was out with the flu, and we didn't have the code for the second one. So we just, it could be as simple as that. Okay. Do you guys think the over-the-shoulder perspective worked for this remake compared to the sometimes over-the-shoulder, sometimes cinematic camera of the original?
I definitely do. I prefer the over-the-shoulder perspective. I know that a lot of people really love the old school fixed camera angle, tank control style of things. I think it had its place in time. I personally don't enjoy going back and playing a lot of those games because I don't think that mechanic ages very well. So I very much preferred the modernization of that. That was the biggest thing that I liked about this, was kind of the quality of life stuff that they brought to it. So I would say yes.
Yeah, for me, definitely, because I played the original. I have the original. I played it like about a month ago, and the camera would just sway every time you turn. The camera would spin, and I get motion sickness. Like, I can't play first-person games, so I just could not play it. So I do like the camera position in this remake.
Listen to this, because Cody does a pretty good job on his Twitter of pushing back at people, which I love because I do the same thing. And this is Gaming Doppelganger. And I don't mean to call you out, but here's what he wrote. And this is kind of outside of the horror discussion. I just want to talk about decorum. The fact that, here's what he says. The fact that anyone would say Alien Isolation's story needs to be better when it was tied to the movies is beyond insane to me and the working Joes. The script for that game is amazing. So I only bring this up and call this out because I'm just curious about how you deal with this, Corey, and maybe I'm too sensitive. But I'm like going, okay, here is Cody Leach, who has one of the biggest horror channels on YouTube. He is a reviewer in Esteem. He gets invited to all these places, and he has an opinion. He didn't say his opinion was right. He didn't say yours was wrong. He was answering your question or someone's question about the game. Do you really feel, Gaming Doppelganger, that the proper response is anyone would say Alien Isolation, anyone that would say what Cody said needs to be better is insane to you and the average gamer? Cody, how do you respond to that? Like, how do you feel? Or do you just let it wash over you because you've been doing it long enough it doesn't bother you? Because that bugs the shit out of me.
After 8 years of it, it's the same song and dance that I hear all the time. You get some people that they really don't appreciate other opinions. They feel like theirs is fact, and if you challenge that in any way, they get sensitive about it, or they feel like you're insulting them, or they feel like you're attacking their opinion somehow, when it can very easily just be a difference of opinion. Like I was saying earlier about the Halle Berry film, I didn't get mad that everybody else in that theater saw something different than I did. I actually celebrate that. I think that's interesting. So yeah, at this point, I don't care. I mean, depending on how they say it, sometimes I can get a little bit more pissed than I do other times, but right. That one is just like, okay, whatever. Like if it worked for you, if you think that story's perfect, then fine. I clearly did not. It was a very, very long, laborious game, essentially, that didn't even really have an ending. It just cuts off, right, and explaining what happened to Ridley's daughter. A lot of the stories in the text logs, and that's also something personally I don't care for. I like where a game's story is in the cinematics, it's in the character interactions, it's in the writing, not in all of the things I have to sit there and read. And there's a shitload of them in that game. So it's just different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, that's healthy. I'm not healthy at all.
I have my unhealthy moments. Don't get me wrong.
I should go live in Silent Hill. Cody, tell him about the discourse from Nefarious we lived through, says Sean Rubino. I don't even know what that is, Nefarious. So it's a movie, I assume. But
Nefarious was a film that came out last year. I was really trying to ramp up my game last year and watch as many new releases as I could. So there was one day where I sat at the theater and I watched 3 films back to back. And one of them was this movie I had never heard of called Nefarious. Didn't watch a trailer, didn't know anything about it, aside from Sean Patrick Flannery was starring in it. He's one of the Boondock Saints.
Yep. And young Indiana Jones.
Yes, and unbeknownst to me, it was a movie produced by the people that did Unplanned and God's Not Dead, and so you see where this is going. It's a movie that is very much, it's a propaganda-style film. It's better done than the few that I've seen, but it's essentially a movie where they're going down the checkbox of, you should feel this way about these subjects. And so I walked out of the film going, I don't like when a movie does that. Even if I agree with what they're saying, I don't like people shouting at me through a megaphone, I come here to see a story. And that review went bananas. And so I had, to this day, I still get comments where there's a certain segment of the ultra conservative, ultra Christian America that think I'm like the second coming of Satan for not liking what that movie is talking about. And so that was one of the bigger examples he's referring to, where it was just getting dogpiled on for months for not appreciating a propaganda movie, whether I agree with it or not.
That's like me growing up in Alabama. Let me ask you about that. Did you ever go to any of these hell houses growing up? Any of the Christian church haunted houses that they put on at Halloween? You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-mm.
Oh my. Well, you can see this on YouTube. If you don't, basically they will put on haunted houses at Halloween, but they are pretty much what you're talking about. It's like all the sins that they don't want you to do. They'll stage a scene of teens dying in a car crash from drunk driving, or this girl had premarital sex and she becomes prostitutes. Yeah. And these are walk around haunts that you can go to. And I went into one when I was like 16 just by accident because we were driving around going to haunted houses. And I was like, what the fuck is this? It was awesomely, horrifically stupid. I loved it. But, you know, it is what it is. Brad Skagg, welcome, buddy, to the Diet Soda Soldiers. I appreciate that very, very, very much. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. I got one or two more questions for these fine folks, but if there's something you really got to ask, get my attention, because we're going to say goodbye pretty soon. But I want to ask you guys about horror this year. Video game wise, what is the horror game that you've both played this year, or that you've each played this year, that you have found to be the one that you've enjoyed the most, that you think is the best?
This year has actually been very scarce, just with video games in general. I feel like I haven't really played much because I just haven't really seen much that's caught my eye. So we both had a lot of fun with Helldivers. That's more action, but it has horror elements, until they started tweaking everything every 5 minutes, and then I lost interest in it. I would say it's between this, Silent Hill 2, and the Dead Rising remaster, the two that I've had the most fun with. And ironically, they came out within like a week of each other.
Right.
For very different reasons, I've enjoyed them.
Okay.
It's kind of depressing that some of my two favorite games of this year are both remakes. There's nothing original that's catching my eye. But
do you play on PC or mostly console?
All console. I have not made the jump to PC yet.
That's your eyes will be open. There's a game called Mouthwashing, which is out now, and it's like $12, $13 on Steam. You play the whole thing in 2 hours. It's fucking weird, man. It's fucking weird as fuck. You should play it. What about you, Rudy?
Silent Hill 2 for me. I've been, ever since they announced it, a couple years ago, I've been looking forward to it, since I love the original. But yeah, I haven't seen any other horror games. I'm always down to play them. I think the last one I played was maybe Dead Space. That was fun. And
that
RE4, the remake. Those are great games. Those are a lot of fun.
Okay. And what about horror movies? What do you think is the best horror film you've seen this year, or the one that you would recommend the most
this year?
My favorite's Abigail.
Okay,
that's the one
cool.
that has been the most that stuck with me the most. I saw the world premiere of it in New Orleans, and I'm a big fan of The Lost Boys, and to me that film really tapped into like a lot of the fun horror edge that The Lost Boys had. And so I've seen that movie 3 times, and it's just an absolute blast. Alien Romulus, excuse me, had Isolation on the Brain. I absolutely loved that one.
My favorite, First Omen. There you go.
That was fantastic.
That
First
was
Omen.
Really,
I haven't seen Abigail yet.
Surprises for sure.
Yeah.
What about the Sydney Sweeney Immaculate movie? Have you guys watched that?
I haven't seen it.
I saw it actually right before I saw the First Omen. They were like a week or two apart, which is odd because it's like almost the same story. It's still worth checking out. I think the First Omen is the better of the two, which is surprising because I would have bet money the opposite. I think she is great in it. I think if anything, you walk out of that movie going, "Oh, okay, she's really talented." And it goes for some pretty twisted places in the third act that is bold. You don't see many mainstream studio films do. So it's worth checking out, but New Omen is the better of the pregnant with the devil stories for me.
Okay,
and we've had 3 of them actually this year, because you had another one that came out a couple of weeks ago.
What was the other one?
The
remake to Rosemary's Baby, right? The remake.
Yeah, the Apartment 7A.
Okay,
7A, there you go.
Would you, if you were going to watch a movie next, would it be VHS 95 or would it be My Dad's Head, or whatever that thing's called?
I've seen both of them, and I would say Daddy's Head.
Daddy's
is
Head,
the better of the two. But I'm not a big horror anthology found footage guy either. So
gotcha.
Daddy's Head, I describe that as the Babadook for step parents.
Interesting. Okay, cool. All right, last couple questions from the chat. Thoughts on the gaming world pushing the digital games over physical games? Publishers giving incentives to players who buy digital with extras. I mean, the thoughts are, I'll take that one. The thoughts are, they are slaves to you. So they will publish and do what you are responding to. And so if you stop buying digital, they'll stop selling digital. If you start buying physical only, you'll see more of that. But most people choose ease of use, low barrier of entry over anything else, and cost. So that's what I would say.
I got to step away for 1 second. Just 1 second.
Somebody says, let me ask you this, Cody. The Art of Interactive Entertainment says, what are your thoughts on AI in general? But I want to be more specific. So if we get a remake of this in 20 years, or let's say it's a new horror game in 5 years, when I'm playing this, walking around Silent Hill 2 with Maria, and I have my microphone here, I mean, we are at the point now, and soon it'll be not even that big of a deal, that we will be able to talk to these AI characters and they will be able to respond in character. What do you think about that? Like, what do you think that would do if you had a really great horror writer that creates these NPCs and they know the intention and the lore and they know what they want that character to achieve as an NPC? Do you think there's value there, or do you think it's just going to go right off the rails?
I don't know, man. Like the AI thing is very nerve-wracking for that. Like there's certain things about it that seem appealing, like it's going to open up certain doors to interactivity and things. And on the other side, I don't really want to open up to the side where AI takes over and suddenly you lose that human element of the storytelling and you lose kind of more of the deliberate path that they want you to go on. So I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle on that one. There could be a really creepy and a really interesting utilization of it, but I feel like that would be few and far between to some of the worst uses of it.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough. Did you play Alan Wake 2?
I did. That was one of my favorites last year.
Okay, a lot of people loved it. There's a lot of similarities between that and this, and I felt, but I could. Yeah, somebody in the chat was asking about it. I couldn't. I couldn't get into it for some reason. It was too slow for me.
It gets better as it goes along because I struggled a lot with the first one and I didn't quite board the train of this is like an underrated masterpiece. So when they announced the second one, I was like, really? Okay. And that one took its time for me too, where the first couple of acts, I actually tried to stream it the first time. And the first 2 hours of the game, I was like, this is too slow for a stream. Like this makes no sense for live entertainment. And so I didn't stream it again. And after you get to... I'd say after you get about 5-6 hours into it, it really starts to hit its stride and you start to understand more of what it's going for. And I really ended up liking that one, but it takes a while to get going.
Gotcha. Okay. That's all I got, fellas. Cody Leach, one of the biggest horror streamers out there. I'll put the link down below. I'm not going to tell it to you because A, I don't know it off the top of my head, and B, I'm just not doing it because I don't know what it is. And then Rudy, you go by Gen X Reviews, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's on YouTube as well. And you do more than that, but I don't know if you want to talk about your other thing you do.
Well, yeah, I also give advice.
I mean, because Silent Hill 2, if you would have been there for James, there is a possibility.
You didn't save him, Rudy.
You didn't save him.
Why
don't you tell the fine folks what you do, Rudy?
Real quick, one of the main reasons I started my YouTube channel back in 2016 was I was going through a divorce and I lost all my friends and I was just alone. So I didn't know what to do with myself. So I always loved movies. So I started filming movies and putting myself out there. But I really excelled in the post-divorce life and I did everything right. My life has been so much better since that horrible event. And I TikTok during COVID, I gave some advice. It went super viral. And I'm also known as Rude Advice on TikTok and on Facebook and on YouTube as well. So I give advice about post-divorce, how to recover from heartbreak. And I've honestly helped in the past 4 years, like over 5,000 people. So it's been amazing just to help people. So the movies and horror and games have always brought me happiness, like fun, but it's something more. It's wonderful to create something and actually change people's lives for the better. So that I'm also known as Rude Advice.
What would you have said to James? He comes to you and he says, look, I'm thinking about killing my fucking wife because she's in pain. And frankly, I'm tired of not getting laid. Have you ever, what would you say?
Go to therapy, man. Go to therapy.
Yeah, I know. Can you imagine if all the video game characters went to therapy, there'd be no horror games. We'd be done.
There'd be no drama.
No.
Be no
Rudy's
story.
actual answer would be like, look, there's this guy named Robbie Harvey I want you to practice on. Sorry. Inside joke.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know who that is. All right. Seriously, though, Rudy, Cody, you guys are superstars for doing this. I sure do appreciate it. People watching, thank you for being here. Thank you for talking Silent Hill. I'm going to hang on the line a little bit just to talk to some of the people that want to call in, but I want to hold these two gents up. You guys are obviously welcome to stay, but you've got busy lives. I'll keep streaming in fact, I'm going to take a 10-minute break. I will say my goodbye since I'm going to keep streaming to Rudy and Cody now, but I will be back in, let's say, 5 minutes after I pee and get a Diet Coke. So I'll be back. And in the meantime, thank you guys very, very much. And I'll send you a follow-up thank you tweet. I really do appreciate it, you guys.
Yeah, no problem, man. I appreciate the invite. Thank you. Anytime. All right, guys, I will be back in just a couple of minutes. I'm just going to take a pee break and a Coke break. All right, back in a sec.
All right. I didn't keep missing there was a caller. Did I? Maybe I did. Sorry. Hang on, fellas. All right. Un momento, my friends. We will start the show again. Well, not start it again, but you know. All right, let's get this going. All right, here we go. Boom. Hang on. Welcome back to the show. I sure do appreciate those fine folks being here with us. That was nice of them to take some time out of their day and hang out and talk about horror and all. I love that conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me just fix this camera and we'll just shoot the shit for a few minutes. Halloween, you guys. I've been watching a lot of horror motion picture shows. I watched, like I said, I saw the TV Glow last night. It was fun. Not fun, but it was interesting. Good movie. All right, Jaffe, you should play the real Silent Hill now. I'll tell you what, Ravnos, the fact of the matter is, I'm done. I loved Silent Hill. You thought I was gone. I said I'd be right back. Well, let me let people know the show's still going on. I thought Silent Hill 2 was just the knees bees. It was delightful. The bee's knees, the D's, whatever the fuck it's called, whatever those fuckers say. However, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted from things that are that deep. And I appreciate it. I loved it. But I'm very much ready to sort of not be in that headspace and play some things that are lighter and, just a little bit less heady, I guess would be the best way to put it. I'm going to send a quick link out, fellas, and then you'll have my full attention. I promise. I'm sorry. I just want people to know the stream's still going. Let's call it part 2. I got things to say. I haven't streamed in a while because, it's not that I haven't wanted to stream. It's that, it takes a long goddamn cockadoodie time to, put all that shit together. And to play, people always get mad at me and they're like, oh, you never finish games. Well, it takes time to finish fucking games. But I enjoyed the shit out of that game, man. I thought it was really fucking good. I thought it was a really good fucking game. All right, hang on. Let's get this link out to the world. The world. Shut up, Jaffe. You shut up. Yeah. What do we got? Hey, there's that guy. All right, hang on. All right. It's always fun to get emails or text or, goddamn it, what are they called? Tweets from people that you admire. I just got a tweet from the guy who's the lead creator over on Marvel Snap, one of my favorite games. Fuck you, Addy Pie. Jaffe, you need to manage your time better. I just did a 2.5 hour stream. Fuck you. What kind of time would you like me to manage better, you piece of shit? All right, here we go. Everybody, welcome. Almost ready. We'll talk games. I got you covered. I'm not going to let you down. Brad Skaggs, seriously, buddy, thank you for joining the Diet Soda Soldiers. I appreciate you being here with us. Very kind and very courteous of you. Thank you for that, buddy. Thank you for that subscription. All right, I think we're ready to go. 1 second. I did not plan on streaming anymore, but I'm here, my delightful friends. Let's begin, at least for a little bit. Boom. Okay. Oh, fuck you, Addy Pie. Addy Pie says, you're acting like regular streams while playing a game on the side is impossible. You know what, motherfucker? What did I do? I played the game. I took 60 pages of notes. I made a 40-minute video about it. I got a follow-up video coming. And we just did a long-form interview. I think that's a good week's work. You go fucking play a game and stream 5 days a week, motherfucker. Yeah. Hello, Captain. Oh, my God. Captain Caveman says, what is this? It's a dude my age enjoying games. Captain Caveman and the Teen Angels, man. That's, let me tell you something. When I was younger and I saw people who were 10, 20 years older than me talking about things like things they grew up with, I'm like, they sound so old. Fuck you. I love it. I love there are people still alive that, know who Captain Caveman is. Fuck you. All right, let me bring in some callers. What do we got? I'm in no particular order. This is now again, I'm not going to do a 20-minute with P Turtle. P Turtle, it's Jaffe. What's going on?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's up, man?
Holy hell. I mean, did you see me waiting here the whole time?
No, I didn't. I wasn't looking. I was supposed to get a pop-up, but it didn't appear. What do you want?
My God.
What would you like to talk about? What do you want to talk about?
I wanted to talk to them about the horror genre. I wanted to talk to them about movies.
Okay, well, talk to me. You got me, baby. What do you want to talk about? Go.
Yeah, but okay. All right. I'll talk to you about this. So, I wanted to talk about the problem that I was having with Silent Hill 2.
Okay.
And your discussion with those guys that I found very problematic is that you guys were basically talking about how great this game is.
Yes.
And you were discussing nothing but cutscenes. What did this mean in this cutscene? And what did the fire mean there? What about the gameplay?
That's not accurate. We talked about but truth or not, that's not an accurate thing you're saying. We talked about puzzle design, camera design, art design in regards to scares that they got out of nothing more than shapes in the environment when you rotate your light past them. Where are you getting that all we talked about was cutscenes?
You spoke about that for about 30 seconds. It was you who brought it up. But these guys came in there, they barely touched on the gameplay.
Well, they're not. They're more movie guys than they're very casual game guys.
That's why I wanted to go in there and let it be known that it's problematic that these cinematic games are made for guys like them who like movies.
Okay, so it has been known. Now, what do you want? What can I do for you, my good friend?
Well, then I also wanted to touch on what was something that they found scary in movies. What's their scariest movie? What's their scariest scene in a movie?
Okay, well, I mean,
I'll ask you. Go ahead.
Well, I'm trying to think. So I asked Cody what he thought the scariest film of the year was, and I haven't seen it yet, which was Abigail. So I don't know if I would agree. Is
that with the doll or something?
I think it's with this girl who's like a vampire, and they keep her in the basement in a cage or something, and then shit goes wrong. Right. But I haven't seen it. But and then I said, and to be fair, they're both more console players. And so there's a lot of great horror, but it's happening at the indie space. And yes, there's indie on console, but more often than not, you're going to see that over on itch.io or Steam. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, keep going.
I don't even feel like you answered my question. What's the scariest movie you've ever seen?
Me, personally?
Yeah, I can't ask them now. You ruined my chance.
Sorry. I'll ask Cody offline. I'll let you know what he says. Movies don't scare me that much, but I would say I'm going to answer it as an adult because watching something and being scared as a kid is meaningless. There's 1,000 reasons why. But okay, as an adult, I would say the best I can get other than jump scares that has unnerved me.
Do you actually jump in jump scares?
Oh yeah, especially if I'm high.
Still get you?
Oh, if I'm high, yeah, that's why I do dope when I'm watching the scary movies. Okay. And I enjoy it. I love it. It's like going on a roller coaster. But so the most unnerving film probably, and it was only one scene, probably was the Blair Witch Project when at the very end and that guy's just standing in the corner and looking at the wall. I just find stuff like that.
Are you talking about the one from the 90s?
Yeah, and then I thought
God.
Well, I'm sorry, P Turtle. Was my answer incorrect?
No, it wasn't incorrect, but for somebody who loves horror, I thought you would have better taste. And
okay, well, what would have made you respect me more, P Turtle? What answer would you have gone like? Now there's an alpha.
I'm glad you asked that.
I'm sure you
are.
I
want to go.
So of course that's where you want to go. God forbid if there was no Joe Rogan or any of these alpha people, you'd have nothing to talk about. But continue.
Well, my issue with older guys like yourself, or just men in general,
no, let's say
being
older,
scared of a movie with ghosts vampires, zombies
Mhm.
is utterly ridiculous to me.
Mhm.
What always scared me were things that can happen in real life. So can I tell you my scariest movie
I
ever
would
that traumatized me?
I assume it's something with Kirk Cameron, but yes, continue.
No. It's actually a prison movie.
Okay.
It's Shawshank Redemption, right? Wasn't that written by Stephen King? A
No,
short story?
well, a short story. Then the film was written and directed by Frank DeBont. I think.
No,
that's
I know that, but it's based on a short story by Stephen King, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So that movie, I remember when I was younger, Andy Dufresne gets butt raped for 2 years.
Okay.
That, when I was younger, blew my mind. I did not know that was possible.
Sounds like it blew something else.
No, it did not. That blew my mind. And from then on, Boggs Diamond was the scariest movie character I have ever witnessed in my life.
Okay.
It's not Michael Myers. It's not Jason, Freddy Krueger. It's not a zombie. It's not a ghost. It's a guy that can butt rape you.
Okay.
That is horror. I can't understand how a man could be afraid of a ghost.
Would you like me to
Or-
explain what's happening? Which maybe it's less about fear and more about intelligence level, or maybe privilege. I don't.
Oh, okay, another racist comment. Go ahead. I guess because I'm black. Go ahead.
I thought first off that what had nothing to do with your race, but I thought you weren't black. But anyway,
Well, it's an IQ, but go ahead.
well, your IQ, that's not racist. That's just stupidest.
Well, us black people have the lowest IQs. Everybody knows that.
I've never experienced anything that would make me.
You've never checked the data on that?
Why would I check the data? But anyway, let's focus.
Okay.
So horror, when it comes to entertainment horror, it's not about the literal fear. It's the metaphor. It's the subtext. It's the primal representation. So in a lot of ways, what you're saying, which is you need to be scared of real things. These things are real, right? But they're coded in a way that maybe makes them more palpable or opens the door to explore those things, right? So if you look at Silent Hill and you say Silent Hill 2 is scary, not because you're actually scared of a guy running around with a pyramid head, but what is scary is fundamentally, as Rudy was saying, fundamentally, we've all had those thoughts that really we don't like, which is as moral as we want to be and think of ourselves, and as kind as we want, we have to admit that there's a part of us that is very self-serving, and who knows what it would take to cross that line. That's why Silent Hill 2 scares people who are not actually scared of the literal representation. It's the fundamental subtext that you may not even be aware of that's working its magic on you. That's what's scary.
Fair enough. And last question.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that short movie called what is it? Something about the Johnsons. It was directed by Ari Aster. Do you know that director?
I've heard the name Ari Aster.
I think he directed Witch, and he directed.
No, but I don't. But no. My answer is I don't know anything about this movie you're talking about.
You never seen Beau is Afraid?
I've heard of it, and I've heard of Witch, but I've certainly never heard of the Johnsons movie. So what's your point?
This is a movie on. You can watch it on YouTube.
Johnson Family Christmas, Ravno says.
I don't know. It could be that one. Basically, it's about a kid who is molesting his dad.
Okay.
And this is from one of the greatest it's one of the craziest, weirdest, sickest videos I've ever seen. I'm surprised you've never seen this stuff.
I've never heard of it.
And he's one of the best horror directors out there right now. Him and Robert Edgers or whatever. He's doing the new
the Nosferatu?
Yeah, he's doing that. I thought you were a horror fan.
I am, but I only watch horror movies that have budget. I got nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I do know now, and I'll look it up. But
watch it. You can't show it to your audience because you probably get banned.
Yeah, no.
But it's on YouTube. It's one of the craziest concepts for a short video I've ever seen in my life.
All right, I'll give it a look.
Okay, and I think that's it.
All right,
I
Be
had
Turtle,
more to
be
talk to
well.
them about, but it was Awesome talking to you, Jaffe. I
You as
love
well.
that you had me. You are the man.
I am indeed. Thanks, buddy. See you
Later, bro.
All right. There goes Pete Turtle fellas off into the evening. Let's see. We got somebody else waiting in the lobby. Let's see what I think we do. Let's see what this person wants. What are you calling me for? This is Sal. Sal Manila. It's Jaffe. What's going on, buddy?
Hello, Jaffe.
Hello.
I just wanted to talk about. I wanted to ask your guess about Twisted Metal Black. Where was his legacy on the horror?
Okay. Well, that ship, my delightful friend, has sailed. So you got anything else?
Yeah, I know. Well, you were talking about Abigail, isn't it?
Abigail is the movie that Cody says is his favorite horror film of the year. Yes.
Yeah, I saw it, and for me, it wasn't a horror movie. It was a fun B movie horror with mainstream actors.
Okay, so what is your
That's a fun
favorite?
movie.
What is your favorite horror movie of the year?
I think I'm in between Long Legs and this horror movie that came out recently called Cuckoo.
Oh, I think about the
He
bird,
has a-
the bird and the girl who keeps the bird or something, the egg.
Yeah, Beard Lady.
I've
Beard Lady.
heard about that, but yeah, that sounds really weird. And then Long Legs is interesting. Bill Bones in the chat says I watched Long Legs a couple of months ago and it stunk. Isn't that something? Everybody's got, horror.
Yeah.
Horror is probably the genre that is most divisive in terms of what people like. But yeah, it depends on the trauma you're dealing with. But all right, Sal, thank you, bud.
Yeah.
All right,
Bye.
see ya. There he goes, off into the night. If you want to call into the show and just shoot the shit for a few seconds, minutes, if you got something fun to say, we can do that. Variety released their top 100 horror movies of all time. I'm going to go there and I'll tell you what the top 10 are. Horror Variety. I don't know if I agree or disagree. I forgot looking at it. Right. Lucas says fear is really personal. Indeed. Addie Pie says, do you have any thoughts on the God of War remasters? I mean, I saw something online recently that said that they were doing them. It wasn't, unless they've announced something recently, it hasn't been official. But it wouldn't surprise me if they are remaking or remastering the God of Wars. I really enjoyed God of War Valhalla or Ragnarok Valhalla, where they use the new camera and all this shit from Ragnarok in 2018, but it was with part of God of War 2005. So I hope it's that. But even if it is just a remaster or a hyper HD version of 1 through 3 with maybe linkage between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3, so it's like a seamless adventure, I think that would be fine. Could the sexy time stuff get cut? Sure. I hope it doesn't. It shouldn't. Like, I wouldn't do it, but I don't fucking know. Jojo D says, Jaffe, is this a game that gets good after 5 hours? Meaning Silent Hill? Will it guide me a little better than Outlaws? That was horrible. I am sure you're doing a Halloween thing. I can't wait. Silent Hill 2, if you're not digging it after 5 hours, you're not going to dig it at all. The only thing I will tell you is look at the map. If you're struggling of where to go, the map is very helpful in this game. And I will also tell you that I recommend turning on the hotspots, which I think are on by default. Like, to let you know, like, there was a part of the game where I was going past in this hotel or this apartment, and I kept going past this door, and I didn't know there was anything interactive about it at all. And when I turned on the hotspots, I'm like, oh shit, I can push that. And everything just started opening up. And I was trying to play it and be more immersed, so I got rid of all the iconography, but that ended up actually fucking me over. Jaffe, did you get my message regarding Bob Lazar and S4 Groom Lake? No. You mean like the UFO guy? No, I have not. What's going on with that? Okay. Let me tell you the top 10 horror films from Variety. Here we go. I'll give you the top 20 because that's a nice thing to do. I'll give you the top 25. Number 25 is the original Scream. Number 24 is the Blair Witch Project. Number 23 is Dawn of the Dead from 1978. Number 22 is 1962's Carnival of Souls. Number 21, 1960's Black Sunday. Here we go. Top 20. I think this makes sense to be in the goddamn top 20. Get Out is number 20. 1932's The Mummy from Universal Horror. Never seen it. Never seen that motion picture. The Shining is 18. I thought that would be higher. 17 is Diabolique from 1955. 16 is the original Halloween from Johnny Carpenter. 15 is Don't Look Now, 1973. I don't even know what that is. The original Nosferatu is hanging in there at 14 from 1922. Silence of the Lambs, 1991's is number 13. Number 12 is King Kong from 33. Come on now. Number 11 is Alien from 1979. Here we go. These are Variety top 10 horror movies of all time. Number 10 is Carrie, 1976, based on the Stephen King story about the put-upon high school student who gets pig blood dumped on her at the prom because she has dirty pillows or something. It's a good movie. Number 9, 120 Days of Sodom, 1975. Never even heard of it. Number 8 is the original Frankenstein. Number 7 is Audition from Japan, 1999. 6, Night of the Living Dead. These are not scary. These might be the most influential horror films. Don't call them the best. Number 6 is Night of the Living Dead. 5, Rosemary's Baby. Number 4 is Jaws, 75. Saw that in the theater. I was born in 71. Yep, I saw that when I was 4 years old sitting in the theater. Number 3 is Psycho, 1960. Number 2 is The Exorcist. A lot of people said that was a scary movie. That didn't scare me. Number 1, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. I don't agree with these, but again, it's personal. It's personal. All right, Zeke, I'll take a look at that. You sent me that on Discord? Okay. I don't know. What's happening in video games today? Any big news going down? I'm back to normal gabbing games tomorrow. I've gotten the Silent Hill bug out of my system. We will be back to normal game news, and I'll be doing a brain on games this week. But Silent Hill grabbed me in its embrace, Silent Hill 2, and I just loved it. It's funny, JoJo D and I have very different games of the year because right now, my two favorite games that I've played this year so far are Star Wars Outlaws and Silent Hill 2. And he didn't like either one of them. We have very different tastes in the video games, good sir. Let's see when this Halloween game is coming out. The one from Way Forward. Halloween game, arcade, retro release. I think it's next week. I hope it's sooner. It's the 18th. So it's not, we're not going to get it this week because it's the 4th. It's this week. End of the week. Okay. Let's see what's going on. Let's go to the news. Let's go to the news, or the news will tell us what's going on. Yeah. Okay. Surely you have to see that Silent Hill 2 is a far better game than Outlaws, Jaffe. Come on. They're very different games, Eddie Pie. They do very, very different things. Metaphor Refantasio, as we know, that's cleaning up and a lot of good reviews. What else? Anything big today, boys? Holy shit. They're still releasing characters for multiverses. Is anybody still playing multiverses? The fuck is happening? What do we got? Unannounced Death Note game has been rated for PS4 and PS5. Bandai Namco is listed as the publisher. Interesting. Persona director says the amazing menus are really annoying to make. Yeah, we get it. There's really not much going on. Oh, people don't like the new Tomb Raider anime. Here's the review from IGN. Outside of the main villain's arc, which had me rolling my eyes, the 8-episode story isn't bad. But just about everything else, character, story, animation is mediocre. That's unfortunate. Oh, you know what? I played this. There's a Steam Next Fest is going on, and I've played 2 games so far, and one of them is they're both really good, but Mandragora, and I'm looking at VG247 says it mixes Metroidvania and Souls-like designs with killer 2.5D aesthetic. It is really, really good. So if you are into such nonsense and malarkey, highly recommend it. Call in, Ravnos. Call in. Let's bring you on the show. Yeah. Hey, Cody Leach is in the chat. Well, Cody Leach, somebody was asking you, P. Turtle was asking you. He called in and he said something. He says, I want to ask Cody what the scariest movie of all time is he's ever seen. So if you want to answer him, I'm sure he'd like to know. And then he'll make fun of it because I think he's P. Turtle is kind of like one of those people that every now and then he'll drop a pearl of wisdom, but you got to go through a lot of fucking shit to get to it, is what I'm saying. I want to see that. Pre-Drag Dupalo says, I just watched The Substance, that movie with Demi Moore and the girl from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Yeah, I want to see that movie. Cody says, is Pet Sematary. I assume you mean the original one with Fred Gwynn, not the new one. I like them both, but I like them both. Cody says Zelda is terrifying. I haven't played that one yet, but I hear it's pretty good. That may be the next thing I play. Maybe I'll get that today and start playing that after I prep tomorrow's stream. But yeah, there's not a lot going on. There's not a lot going on in the game world today, so this was a fun stream to do. Let's bring in Ravnos. Let's see if he can give us the jolt we so badly need. Ravnos, what's going on?
Hey, I have a stream idea.
Go.
Okay, get some people that want to show up on camera to discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know how you did your little voting thing for the trailers?
My little voting thing? Thank you for making it sound really...
Well, no. I don't know how to explain it. I didn't mean it.
No, I appreciate the passive-aggressive, condescending tone.
Oh, God.
Anyway, yes, continue. I'm aware.
Do it for movies. Do it for scary movies. Like, pitch, like, say, hey, which of these is scary? And then get it to where we end up with, like, a top 10 or top 20, and then we could all discuss them and why one movie is scary and another.
But why do it for movies versus games? Because
we could do it for games too.
Because my channel is more, anytime I deviate from video games on this channel, nobody shows up.
I was thinking if you did movies, you could invite like one or two of those guys you just had on because people seem to like them.
Yeah.
But it could be games. It could be games, and you could get someone else, like maybe, I don't know, Gene Park. Yeah. I just think something like that would be cool. Like not on Halloween.
Because what you're really saying, Ravnos, is
oh God, I know what you're gonna say.
What? No, go ahead.
You're gonna say, what you're saying is you don't like the stream, but it's just me. You want me to bring in other people because you find more interesting.
No, that's not what I was gonna say. But thank you for that peek into your motivation. No, what I was gonna say was a lot of people tell me, and I just avoid it because a lot of people say, Jaffe, your show would be better if you had like other people on it that you could play off of. And
do you know why?
Well, maybe, but I struggle with that. But tell me why.
Because you sometimes let the chat get under your skin, and we can see it on your face when you're fed up and annoyed. And then usually when you're like, okay, guys, you don't get mad and say, you guys are idiots. You just go like, oh, I'm exhausted, guys. That's gonna do it for today. And I don't blame you because I'm in your chat, so I see what happens. And when there's other people, you're really good at ignoring chat.
Well, yeah, because the show's the show.
There you go.
But when it's just chat, the show's the chat and me.
Yes, but the problem is, it always eventually turns into someone says something about trans, about woke, about DEI. It devolves into a shit fest of monkeys flinging their shit and their politics everywhere. And
I would like to think I've gotten better at ignoring that lately because...
lately, yeah, because you skipped streaming for like a whole week.
No, I was playing Silent Hill, you fuck. All right.
I'm glad. Oh, hey, back to Silent Hill 2.
Yeah.
I'll be completely honest. I have not played the new one.
Okay.
But I've talked to people who are gigantic fans of the first game, and I am too. I personally like Silent Hill 1 more, but that's just personal taste. They're saying that they're baffled by why it's getting so much praise. Because
keep going.
Well, what Team Bloober did was they did a really good job of making it feel like Silent Hill 2. And then they went and they added tedious, boring stretches that weren't in the original that padded out the time of the game. And then when you guys were talking about how at times you got a little bit bored.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like those were all the times that Bloober team added to the game that weren't there in the original. Like people were talking about how they used to be able to go through Silent Hill 2 to get all the endings, and they could do a full run through the game to like 5 to 6 hours. And in this new one, it takes like 10 to 12.
Yeah, I mean, I since I didn't play the second one, I don't have that basis of comparison. So, but I do think that is a valid criticism of Silent Hill 2 remake. And so, if you are blessed with a basis of comparison, I could see how you'd be like, "What in the fuck?" But that said, though, you know, it's still a great fucking game. It speaks a lot to how great the game is that I actually wanted to finish it, and I did finish it, and I was still playing a game that felt at times bloated, like it needed to get off the fucking stage because it did what it needed to do.
It's because the story just gets you and you want to see where it's going.
And it's just really compelling. The combat feels good. The art is really, it's pleasing in a weird way to be in those worlds. It's really, really well made, but I do think it needs to be a tighter game for sure. So, all right. Thank you, buddy. I'll talk to you later.
Yep. All right, man.
All right. All right. Well, fellas, that is going to do it for me. I think we've had a nice little show. To good Sir Cody, good Sir Rudy, and all you guys who called in and chatting with me in the Discord. I appreciate it. But in the meantime, I'm going to head out. I'll see you guys tomorrow with the Proper Gabbing Games sometime in the morning. And have a great rest of your evening. That's my new song. It's coming out soon. Be well, be safe, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, you guys. Mayo says, Jaffe, please, I want your opinion. How is the combat system good if you only have one attack? I didn't say it was a good combat system. I said it was satisfying. It felt good. It feels good to swing the board. It feels good to swing the pipe. You know, it's the sound and the blood and the impact on the rumble is satisfying. I'm not saying it wants to go toe to toe with, you know, Devil May Cry's combat system, but for what it needs to do, I thought it did it really, really well. So that would be my answer. All right. See you guys.